One evening, returning home after college, he walked among the street lamps, anxiously waiting for the green light. Thoughts flashed through his mind about the party he was late for. Music was playing in his headphones, and he didn't notice how far away the headlights of a speeding truck came on. For a moment he looked in the direction of the truck. A moment of fear froze inside him. This was the end, he thought. But then something happened, and he found himself in a completely unfamiliar place. There was no city around him, not even a village. A magical landscape of a flying island with a castle covered with moss and tree roots opened up in front of him. Dragons circled in the sky. He could not believe his eyes for a long time. He realized that he might never return home again, and would stay here forever, without hope for help. After walking tens of kilometers, he came across a monastery, where he was met by a nun who offered help. Her kindness inspired him. A few months later, he became a hero named Mark. Together with a group of adventurers, he defended the world from evil monsters, in the battle for his life. And in the end, he realized that these people became his family. A little later, they gathered around the fire and shared various jokes and stories related to their adventures. They were happy to remember their inseparable team, and of course, they also liked Mark. He realized that he had achieved a lot, and became an outstanding hero who achieved great success in this world. The guy trained until exhaustion, surpassing himself, could destroy any monster with one blow. But one day, one of their adventurers died. He was hopeless. Pleas for her to be alive did not help. Objectively, she saw how her team was suffering and decided to smile. Her smile and words so that the hero could win over the monsters were the last thing she said. Time passed and they buried her. It was a great loss for all of them. One day he came across a door behind which sat a majestic monster, locked in a kind of darkness, who terrified those around her just by looking at her. And then one of the adventurers of his group came up. The hero only slowly stood up in front of her. Mark was ready for this challenge. Slowly opening the door, he asked for prayers. This was the moment that was to change everything. A smiling image flashed before the boy's eyes. He saw his fellow adventurers ready to give their lives for him, ready to support him with all their might. Having opened the gate, the hero thought about how to save every adventurer fighting next to him, how to defeat this monster. There was only cold air around, through which he had to pass in order to defeat this unfortunate monster and free this world from difficult battles. The guy was walking ahead, seeing a huge monster that wanted to kill him. He was not afraid. He was just walking forward to save the world from darkness, to return home. Because thanks to this demon, he would be able to travel in time. Returning to the village of the inhabitants, he made it clear by his appearance that the demon of darkness no longer exists in this world. The main character returned to the village, and by his appearance he let the people around know that the monster that was hiding in the dungeon was no longer there. They were met in a magnificent carriage with horses. They all joyfully greeted their heroes. Having entered one of the beautiful palaces of the village, the cook immediately laid a festive dinner on the table. Music was playing in the far corner, filling the air with a festive mood. Our heroes sat down at the table and enthusiastically praised the royal drink with which they celebrated their victory. The guy was a little worried about the fact that tomorrow he would have to return to his world and meet his parents again. He was happy, but he also felt some anxiety. A young adventurous nun asked him if he was glad to return home. The guy stared intently into a mug of beer. His face expressed mixed feelings. The hero said that he got into this world. The boy did not know if he would be able to return. The nun replied that he was too absorbed in his desire. She decided to just give him a hug to calm him down and smiled in gratitude. Mark abruptly put the mug on the table. A little embarrassed, the guy thought about whether I should return home at all. But on the other hand, he wanted to see friends and relatives who missed him. A group of adventurers saw how the nun hugged the boy and said that they would make a good couple. They turned away from each other in embarrassment while the rest of the group laughed at them. And now one of the heroes asked if you should stay here, if you should return home at all. The nun replied that he needed to return to his world. The group regretfully replied that they would like him to stay and live with them until the end of time. The nun smiled and simply stroked the boy's hand, soothing his ego. She offered to pray for the happiness of their hero, for him to have a bright future. The hero looked closely at the nun and realized that it was not in vain that he found her in that monastery, because she was just as bright, kind, and happy as this place. She talked about how he would have a bright future, that he would be happy, even though in the depths of his soul she was a little sorry that he would leave forever. But at the same time she was happy that the guy would find happiness. The whole group of adventurers joyfully raised their glasses and shouted that they were drinking to the bright future of the hero. After 3 weeks, our hero still returned home. Standing on the sidewalk, a gray mass crowding around him, engulfing his consciousness. He simply does not understand that he is forgotten here. Mark realized that this was a mistake in his decision to come to this world. His thoughts were absorbed by the desire to hear the voice of the priestess once more. The guy realized immediately that the priestess and his whole group were deeply mistaken. He was unhappy in this world, and he really wanted to become an adventurer again. A little earlier, after the guy returned home, he approached the intercom with a smile on his face. waiting for the joy of his parents about his long-awaited return. A stranger, whom Mark had never met before, came out of his house. After that, he asked who this person was and why he settled here. This stranger shared a long story with Mark. In this story there was the story of his mother and father, whom Mark had not seen for 8 months. The mother distributed leaflets with the boy's photo every day, doing this for 8 months in a row. In addition to his duties, one day the boy's mother died. She was hit by a robber, who is still at large, and the police are still searching for him. The father could not bear such a loss and decided to commit suicide, leaving a letter with a request. Publish information about the son's disappearance in Japanese newspapers and news. It happened at the moment when the boy's mother died. Arriving at the cemetery, Mark saw the ashes of his parents and family photos in which they are depicted as cheerful and happy. At that moment, it was very difficult for Mark, and he did not know how to cope with his feelings. The next day he decided to go to school to talk to his friends and teachers about what to do next. Instead of support, he was expelled from school. The teacher advised him to apologize to his parents and prepare for the exams if he wanted to correct his situation. After these words, Mark felt the desire to hurt someone for all the excruciating pain that he had experienced. But he understood that he could not do this, because he is a hero, and he must use his power for good. The boy repeatedly reminded himself of the need to remain calm and not give free rein to emotions. In the deepest depths of his soul, he sought peace and tranquility. At night, the guy thought about how he lives in this world and what else can be done for his good. Sitting on a bench, Mark noticed that his old friend Steve, whom he had not seen for 8 months, was approaching him. When Steve came over, he announced that they wouldn't be able to maintain a friendship anymore since they couldn't even go to school together. The guy also said that he had found new friends that he was comfortable with, and he also mentioned that his mother had banned him from socializing with Mark. He also emphasized that the graduation will come soon, and most likely, after that he will not be able to maintain communication with Mark. The guy silently listened to his sad words and realized that in this world he is despised, not appreciated, and he has no place anywhere else. A little later, Steve's father attacked Mark, who was also Mark's father's best friend. And because of Mark, Steve's best friend died. And in all this, Steve's father blamed only the guy, that he ran away and did not return home for a long time. Steve's father only insisted that Mark had become an ungrateful son, who had destroyed his parents. While the boy lay beaten, they only called him that he was a man and allowed his parents to die. Steve's mother held his father's hands. Steve's younger sister asked him only one thing, so that he would go further and not show himself anymore. Time after time, Mark was only beaten and laughed at, and there was not a drop of kindness in his direction. He felt only a cold look around him. The guy thought about the fact that he just wanted to return to an ordinary family and live like everyone else. An ordinary family. So he and his family did not have much saved. He looked at the passers-by who ate food and walked with a smile on their face. The guy wanted to check the pockets in his jacket. He looked into his jacket. He saw that he still had some left there, and he was able to get only a little money, which was enough for him only for a couple of days. Mark understood that he had no family, no education, and even no place in society. His heroic personality seemed to have evaporated and disappeared. The guy wanted it all to turn out to be just one big nightmare that he just had. He would just wake up now, and his parents would be fine, and he wouldn't hate everyone he knew. He opened his eyes again. He saw the same depressing picture he had seen before. Mark simply could not understand how a hero can be more unhappy than an ordinary person. The guy saved many lives and people and responded when they needed him. Mark made every effort to return home, and in the end he was left all alone. And then some stranger passed by who was almost 1.5 times higher than the Mark. This stranger sharply turned his attention to the guy and looked at him with hatred and malice. Looked at the guy and said all sorts of nasty things to him. The stranger just wanted to make fun of the guy and show off in front of the girl. After that, the girl told the stranger to move away from the guy and let him sit quietly on the bench. And the stranger also told Mark that he rarely makes a girl laugh, so he lets him go. Mark decided to ask the stranger if he thought it was funny. At that, the stranger just stared at the guy, looking him straight in the eyes. The stranger saw how Mark was crying. In a quiet, calm voice, in a hysterical voice, Mark continued to say, "Are you okay?" Under the protection of the hero. Gromulus simply does not understand what this guy is carrying, and just wants to hit him in the head and convince him finally. Meanwhile, the guy continues to say that he knows what he wants. He just smiled into the stranger's eyes with tears in his eyes and a smile on his face. The guy quickly came up and just decided to take him by the hair and beat his brains out. After that, this was the last straw for the guy, and he decided to awaken his strength and unleashed his sword. At such a concession from the side, the girl only started laughing even more at the guy and at the whole situation that is happening around. After that, in an instant, a huge berserker blade was successfully summoned and hit the stranger, and the boy was left with only the girl. That the girl paid attention to everything that happened. She shouted in a historical voice at the top of her voice. Mark decided to put on his silver armor and told her to suffer and accept the pain as it is. The guy suddenly changed his train of thought and thought that it would be unfair if he alone suffered. Therefore, he only took his legendary sword in his hands and put on all his silver armor to the end. He was only convinced once again how pitiful and helpless people are. Even helping someone would not be a problem. So he simply decided to destroy all people in Japan. He waved and raised his sword up, while the other people had not yet recovered from the shock for a long time. Jumped up and whirled in a circle of people with his sword around him. A guy whose reception he learned in the world where he ended up. Mark created a huge sphere, the beginnings of which will increase in size and surround the entire city, exploding everything around itself. For a moment, there was only a white light that surrounded the boy and all the inhabitants of the city. After the massive explosion, the guy was standing on a small patch of land. He was standing on a piece of land around him. A huge explosion occurred, which destroyed almost the entire city. The guy was saying that the world was saved, and he saved this world himself. At that moment, the whole of Japan experienced an earthquake, and it was the Kongoku region that leveled to the ground. After this nuclear disaster, all residents of Japan wanted to leave as soon as possible to another country to avoid such situations. So there were many traffic jams on the way out of the country, because of which all people could not fly away or leave the country. People even suspected that it could be a nuclear war, a natural disaster, a zombie apocalypse. This is the end of the world, because of which everyone was in a panic and just wanted to live as before. Also, one of these victims was Michael, who wanted to leave with his family further from this neighborhood. Michael had his grandmother Grace, his mother Kate, and his sister Isabel. They were all very worried about this situation. There were traffic jams, so they slowly moved along the road to the airport. Since this situation happened suddenly, Sister Isabella began to cry, and she asked her brother how much longer they would go. What the older brother Michael paid attention to and looked at his sister, who was crying with a plush rabbit. Isabella also decided to ask her brother where her father was and why he was not with them. The guy replied that they would meet soon, even though their father was waiting for them in a completely different city. In order for his sister not to cry loudly, he decided to tell her not to disturb her mother, because she is driving the car, and the driver cannot be distracted while driving. So the girl abruptly stopped crying, wiped her tears, and calmed down. At this very moment, one of the police motorcyclists who was driving into the center of the traffic jam left to report very important information to all citizens by stopping abruptly on a motorcycle, thereby attracting the entire nation. On his motorcycle on the Wednesday highway, the military took out a loudspeaker and announced that the hero would soon be right behind them, so they urgently need to take all the most important things and go to the airport on foot. Well, all the citizens of this traffic jam were more restless than their lives, and they decided to listen to the military. He asked all people in traffic jams to leave their cars in an organized manner, to follow him. He also said that one should not panic, and also follow the instructions of military and police actions. Kate shouted to Michael to look after Isabel and try not to lose sight of Kate. Otherwise, it will be difficult for them to find each other in this crowd of people. Vunny once again began to repeat his words in front of the people, as if suddenly. One of the powerful tanks in Japan flew in and crashed, after which it made a loud, terrifying sound, because of which all the people who were calm became panicked more than before. All the people tried to save their lives and fled as far as possible from this burning place. The panic and fire was so great that people almost did not go to each other. While the boy and Isabel were running away, the deepest chaos was happening around them, in which Michael tried with all his might to save his sister and run as fast as possible from this place. While all the people tried to escape very quickly, including Michael's family, on the back horizon was the very same hero named Emina. Mark, the same Mark who committed this entire nuclear explosive disaster. The guy wanted only one thing, and that was revenge for all his suffering and for the fact that people could not understand him. The guy became the one he hated. He became a monster who only wanted to destroy all people who came across his path. Only with his appearance he covered all the earth with fire, and in the distance were only those in which fate was prepared not to live in this world. Many people, due to distraction, no longer knew where to run forward or back. They were simply completely confused about what they wanted. The guys who looked at all these people who ran away from him wanted to live. But when he remembered his parents, his heart only ached more because of the pain he felt while he was all alone. Therefore, he accepted his essence and thought about the fact that they really want to live in this world, which is filled with hatred and suffering. While he looked at these people who were running away, he could not understand whether they could not accept their en takoi kakaya ona est. Looking at all these people, he understood that each of these people thinks that it is not he who will die, but someone else. He considered them narcissistic idiots who somehow do not think about others. The guy abruptly went downstairs to get rid of all these desires that provide these poor people who are just trying to survive at any cost without thinking about others. While the hero decided to attack the people who were behind Michael, he quickly ran away together with Isabel to a very far place, the main one further away from the hero. While the guy was running, he couldn't think about anything other than his sister and his mother, who was probably far away. He didn't know what happened to them, because in such a short time they were so far away. The guy was caught by some man who was running and caught him, from which he fell together with his sister. Trying to get up again, Ego's sister dropped the stuffed rabbit, who fell and rolled under the car. Isabella saw where her rabbit fell. She started screaming and pushing, because of which Michael almost fell and crashed again together with his sister. After that, she began to pull her brother by the neck, who said that Mr. Bunny had fallen, and she wanted him to bring her toy. The guy said that I will have to leave it. I won't be able to get it so quickly. But the girl just burst into tears and asked him to get it, because it was given to her by her father, so this toy was very dear to her. Michael, for 1 millisecond, decided to remember that this toy was given to her by her father before they left for the seaport. Since he was rarely at home, he also gave her gifts, so Isabella cherished every gift that her father gave her. She was always a beautiful, intelligent, obedient good girl, and she always came to see her father when he could run while their team was preparing for the next voyage home. The guy decided that it was very important for her sister, and he decided at all costs to bring back this bunny, which will remind her of their father, so he very quickly asked Isabella where she last saw the bunny. She just wiped her tears and pointed with her finger in the directions where the same bunny lay. She pointed to a white car, which people were passing by, and he immediately understood that in order to get there, he needed to hurry after it. Therefore, the boyfriend told my sister not to let go of her mother's and grandmother's gaze, and then they would immediately run after them together. After that, Michael turned and ran as fast as possible through the whole crowd and all the strangers around, who were wondering why the guy was running backwards and not forwards. I ran and lay down on the ground to see where he was lying under the car. He found the same bunny, which was lying and waiting for him to come here. Little by little, he began to reach for this very bunny in order to pick it up as quickly as possible and return to his sister. While the guy was trying to get the bunny, our hero decided to do one very exciting and interesting thing for him. He decided to destroy all human lives at once. Finally, having taken out this hare, the guy already wanted you to get out of the car and return to your sister as a friend. The hero decided to use his attack, after which he began to spin around the wasp to create destructive tornadoes. Everyone who came across the hero disappeared in the blink of an eye. With just one attack, the hero was able to destroy almost all the human lives that ran away from him, and only one person named Michael will survive from all the people who were destroyed away from the hero. He got down on one knee and took a deep breath. From all the dust that surrounded him, he realized that he was completely alone. Wiping his already broken glasses, he looked at what was happening around him. He was able to see and consider the most unpleasant picture, namely the crooked houses that are burning in flames, filling the sky with smoke and mud, as well as a bunch of people who died from the hero's strength. He was so shocked that he didn't even understand how it could happen around him in 1 second. He literally went down to see where the bunny was. Suddenly realizing that he was left alone, he began to sympathize with his family. Therefore, although slowly and now, he called out to his family where his sister and mother were. He called their names so that they would respond. Taking his time to look where his family is, he finds a familiar hand, which belongs to his younger sister. She was crushed by a huge stone that flew into one of the apartments. After recovering from another shock, he decided to go down and see if she was alive. Trying to pull Isabella out of the big stones, the guy was just wasting time. He saw that her sister had been made into real minced meat, and that he could not do anything to save her. He simply stood on his knees and tried to collect his thoughts, while meanwhile the hero ran up to him, to whom the boy looked into the hero's eyes with hatred in his heart. The hero only replied that Michael had amazing eyes that experienced the same pain as he himself. The guy decided to ask if by chance he was the hero who destroyed his family, to which the hero replied that yes, he destroyed his family and everyone who was on this highway. And Mark also said that he is very similar to himself, with his own eyes and situations in which there is no place for hope or dreams. Michael completely forgot who he was talking to and decided to shout at the hero, thus disappointing his ego. The guy had so forgotten what the hero had done that he decided to just pick up some kind of stick. Thus he attacked the hero with hatred and a stick in his hand. But the hero was able to grab him by the throat with just a simple movement of his hand, because of which Michael was not in the best position. Not giving up, the guy only talked about the fact that he would be able to destroy him and take revenge for his family and for everyone he destroyed. This angered the hero, who answered how he was going to do it, to which he simply stabs the guy with his sword in anger. After that, only then did he realize that he was dying, and the end had come for him. The guy thought only that he was going to die, but he did nothing and could not do anything. He took all his relatives, Sister Isabella, Jim's father, and Kate's mother, Grandma Grace. The guy died only with the knowledge that the hero took his entire family and his life too. After some time, they started calling him a hero, after which he saw a girl in a strange hat and strange clothes. He was surprised that she began to rejoice when he woke up because he does not know her at all, and how she knows him is not at all clear. Lying on the stone magic floor or the magic circle, he did not understand how he ended up here, and in general, how it happened. The last thing he remembers was how the hero pierced him with his sword. After 3 days, she could not answer such a question, and therefore only nodded in 2 directions, because the hostess had a lot of these rumors, so it was difficult to escape from this camp. And in the end, this world was filled with heroes, and a lot stopped in that world. that same hero or decided to conquer all the lands of Japan. Mark is the same hero who mastered hatred and humiliation and was able to conquer this Japan in just a few days, and he was standing on the edge of some building that was burning with all the lights. No one could lay a finger on Mark to tell him or prove anything, because he could very easily tear them into small pieces. One by one, I am returning to the same heroes who destroyed the main demon in their world that threatened this or that world. Each of the heroes who arrived in Japan after the end of his boss, he selected his territory by asking the main character Mark. Now all the people who inhabited Japan have become mere symbols of society, and the entire economy in this country has gone to the bottom. In one of the territories of the heroes, there was an island of Jeju, which was the hero of the golem. Flying eyes that were made of pure magic flew around this island. This camera resembles an eye, which only did that it flew around. Also, he was needed so that at night there was a curfew during which not a single person should be out on the street. And if someone was found, it would not be until the morning when they would not be found. There were also buildings in which refugees lay, people who only wanted freedom and a peaceful life, but received only endless routine and malice around them. Also in one of these blankets lay Stephanie, who wanted freedom and a prosperous future for all the people of Japan. Stephanie experienced so much pain in a few months that she wanted only one thing, to end it all. Also, Stephanie had a childhood best friend, Flora. They were very close friends together. Flora constantly supported Stephanie, no matter what state they were in. Stephanie reasoned with Flora. Why should she live in such a world at all? It would not be easier to end it all as soon as possible and commit suicide, to which Flora resisted and said that they were not created to die so early, but to live and continue to live for of their descendants. Sooner or later there will be someone who can save their world from heroes. After that, the door opened from which there was a bright flash, and one of the puppets of the golem hero came out. This baby of the sea was very similar to a human hand that moved on 5 fingers. This hand decided to wake up all the people to make them work for their mistress, the hero who saved their lives, in exchange for the fact that they would bring him food and all possible resources which people can get. They all worked from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m., so every day in their lives were very sad. After the heroes came to their lands, the doll only repeated that they were going to work if they didn't want to die. Here's the hand, the hostess. People suffered from day to day. Also, this puppet counted all the people who were finishing their shift. If someone wanted to escape from their camp, and he did not count at least one person, then the alarm and interrogation of all people would immediately begin. This mistress had a lot of servants who simply physically would not give more than one person a guarantee of a successful escape from the camp. All the people of this camp gathered near one big stage, on which they waited for their master every morning, waiting for someone appointed by him. All the people of this camp generally did not like the way they lived and what they were told to do, exhaustingly and painfully working to the limit of their strength from morning to night. Although the actions were not complicated, doing it every day was still a routine. While all the people of the camp were standing, the host was already approaching the stage and was already anticipating today's day. All the hostess's dolls fulfilled any of his wishes and whims that he wanted. I slowly climb up on my dolls to my stage. He was only thinking about what kind of punishment he would come up with for all the culprits. The master was very careful and knew how to manage everything with puppets on the island, but he understood that nothing in his life could not go according to his plan. When he got up on the stage and looked at all the people, his puppets lined up in a row, just like the police when they protect the president of the country or the mayor of the city. His name was Steinman. His main ability was only that he could create and control a bunch of puppets at once. He is also called a puppeteer. As mentioned earlier, he could summon any creature with the click of a finger. Therefore, he had no problems with the servants. He summoned servants very quickly, and he could create not only ordinary servants, but also as now. Steinman created 2 large speakers that levitated on the ground and were completely controlled. Having connected the microphone, the guy wanted to give a speech for this morning. When the guy was an ordinary person, he wanted to become a comedian, so he loved the stage very much. And because of this, he decided to tell everyone how he is the real host of a show. He said, "Dear today, according to the plan, women collect food, and men continue to build the Tower of the Sage. People only had to listen to the ego and follow all the ego's orders in order to survive." The appearance of the people was quite sad and destroyed, so the hero asked why they are so sad, if he is holding them captive and forcing them to do all this without their permission. While he was telling all this, all Stephanie could think about was that there are no volunteers here. No one would want to become a volunteer, especially for someone like him. He also said in his justification that they should be grateful to him for the fact that they did not fall on the land of the moat, or their beliefs would immediately be turned into minced meat and into experimental rats that would only run around in circles until the hero reached them. Well, people only responded with quiet silence. With their silence, they only angered the hero, who really wanted to have fun with his new toys. Looking at the people, he insisted that they were completely relaxed, since they did not react to his words in any way. Therefore, He decided to teach them as best as possible, so that they would not repeat their mistakes again. The guy ordered his puppets to catch up with all the people and show them what happens if they don't listen to him. The hero began to persecute everyone with the help of magic. All ego puppets used air magic, with the help of which they could shoot as if from a cannon. Steinman was very fond of arranging over living human lives, which is why he was nicknamed the Tyrant of the Air, a hero who not only controlled puppets, but also people. Stephanie just stood as if buried in one place while all the other people were destroyed without a trace. Her face was full of emptiness, and there was not a drop of hope because of this. She was ready to die without any reason to try to survive. But Flora, who was considered Stefana's best friend, she protected her life so that she could live and be able to achieve a happy life, giving her life in exchange. While all the other people were running away, Stephanie only approached her friend Flora and closed her eyes so that she would sleep in an eternal sleep, and in this way paid her debt to her friend for saving her life. Stephanie was very upset and said that Stephanie should have been in her place. After all, she didn't want to live, and Flora did. After that, the owner decided to speak, who told everyone that if they did not start working, then he would not organize another riot and everyone who would be here would die. So the people still made up their minds and stopped. After which they went to start working and try to fulfill their work schedule. Stephanie and all the girls went to the orange field to harvest the harvest, which was very abundant, and they had to harvest it by 8 in the evening. They collected everything very diligently and for a long time. Grandmother saw how Stella took so long and hard to collect all these oranges. She wanted to help the young beauty. Thus he sprinkled her with his oranges, which she collected so that Stella would not suffer so much. Stella saw an unexpected noise coming from her basket, and she saw how grandmother poured her oranges over her, and she was not too ashamed of it. Stephanie asked her grandmother why she spilled the oranges on her, to which her grandmother replied that she just wanted to help the young lady so that she in turn would not be stressed and could get some fresh air and take a walk to the sea, which was nearby, since they live on an island and he not so big. She asked the grandmother if she would be able to collect one more basket of oranges, since she had already poured the whole basket for the girl. She said that she would be able to collect another basket without any problems, since she had devoted her whole life to this business. So she only once again said that she went for a walk for a while. Stephanie was immensely grateful to her grandmother. Also, the grandmother reminded her to get rid of the eye that was flying over their heads. As video surveillance, the hero wanted that not one of the people could escape from their work, so they had to use ingenuity to distract this flying drone above their heads. Stefana waited a little longer, and at one point she was able to slip unnoticed past this eye. The girl ran through the forest to the sea and found many interesting things past the orange trees. She was able to reach a beautiful place where it was most comfortable for her to observe the forest, which was on the sides just like a picture frame, as well as golden sand, which was approached by beautiful sea waves. While Stephanie was looking at the waves that were approaching and breaking away from the shore, she thought that she could watch it together with Flora. Flora was Stella's best friend, so she felt very lonely. For her, Flora was a ray of hope in this world, but without her, all this hope disappeared in an instant. Stella was very wrong about the words she said to Flora, about the fact that she wanted to die because she did not want to live with Flora, who is no longer there. She wanted Flora to see this beautiful sea with her. There are delicious oranges, together spend this damned life with her. Stella regretted very much that she had lost such happiness that supported her and loved her as her own sister. While she stood crying and remembering Flora, some unknown person suddenly approached her. Stella thought that it could be a hero who was just watching her, but the hero would not just look, he would start to act. She also thought that it could be a puppet of the hero who found her and wants to try to attack and destroy her. Because of this, Stella did not have time to do anything. She just froze in place to find out who it might be. But it turned out that it was a military man. The military man who had sailed here on his ship, which was not far from the ship. When he met Stella, he began to ask her if he would like any food. He had not eaten for 3 days, at which Stella did not stand still for long in a stupor, and began to turn out her pockets and gave only some kind of grape candy, a little chocolate bar, and the peel of an orange. She added that there are still oranges, but there are none of them. What the soldier looked at, wondered if this was all he deserved. At all, he was not indignant because food is food. The soldier did not despair and simply began to absorb food to survive. When he asked Stella to bring some more food, he added, "Can she bring some more food?" The guy said that he is not alone. He also has a whole squad waiting for him on the ship. He himself went in search of food to find and feed his people. Stella was surprised and said that she can't. If the hero finds out, he will kill her and all the residents who are now plucking oranges. But Stella also thought that since the military is here, there is a hope that he and his team can try to take on this case and try to destroy the hero. She said that she hadn't thought much about it yet. She shouted that she will get them food, they will be able to defeat the hero and save this island. To which the soldier replied that if she could get them some food, then everyone's morale would most likely rise, and they might be able to return this island to the people. As soon as the hero finished his words, Stella sharply turned her attention to the flying eyes that were probably looking for her. She reasoned about strategy and thought that if she ran through the forest, she would be able to make it before the eye could turn in their direction. Stella again looked at the soldier and said that if I get you food, I risk my life. You will have to give a hero to prevent this from happening. After that, Stella quickly ran to the people and took one full basket with oranges. She started running back to the soldiers to help them as quickly as possible. While she was running, she remembered Flora, who said that she did not want to die, in fact she wanted to live. She kept saying that she was simply afraid to live her whole life in fear and torment, not having the opportunity to do something, which is even scarier than the end. Therefore Stella tried with all her strength and legs to get to the military as quickly as possible. Speaking to herself, she didn't want to live such a worthless life because of it. She will live and fight to the end. But going to the shore, Stella saw a terrible picture in which he was. The hero who was standing there and told Stella that a rat had appeared and was carrying information about him. Stella saw how he held the entire squad of soldiers with his puppets in his hands, which disintegrated them into pieces, and the blue sea turned into a red scary place. After that, the hero took control of another hand and grabbed Stella, who did not expect such an outcome of events. Stella was grabbed so hard that she began to scream at the top of her voice, and even the crunch of her spine could be heard. While holding the girl's hand, she asked how the hero could see their plan if the ego doll could not see the ego. To which the hero replied that since she will not live until dawn, he decided, that let her find out that this is far from the only eye. The hero decided to turn off the invisibility mode. After that, Stephanie saw how all these eyes filled the whole sky. After that, she realized that she would never hide from such a mass of watching eyes. It only made the hero laugh that she thought that she had hoped that he would never find out about her deed. Laughing at Stephanie, the guy asked her why she wasn't laughing, and it turned out funny. At that, the girl got angry and shouted that he is a pitiful idiot who mocks only people's lives and does not give rest to all residents of Japan. To which he replied that, why is he here? If it's just because she's worthless with her mind alone, since she didn't immediately understand that it couldn't be that simple. And the guy added that she would know how much he had lived before that, and why the heroes became the way they are. Out of anger, the guy just wanted to crush the poor girl who could only say all sorts of pitiful words from her mouth. Stephanie only thought that her pathetic request was doomed to failure. It had already been decided. Stephanie realized that even if this is already the case, she has nothing to lose. And therefore, calling out at the top of her voice, she began to call someone for help. At that very moment, some effects flashed and something similar to shining stars that clapped all over the island. There was a massive explosion that hit the hero and Stephana. The hero then covered his eyes when he saw what had happened in one moment. The guy saw a stranger whom he had not seen before, and he was carrying a spear and was dressed strangely. Perhaps he was a hero, but he had never seen such heroes before in this world. The hero did not understand where there was another one similar to him, and what he was doing here at that time. Stella only looked at another hero, and could not understand whether he was an ally or an enemy. This hero had some kind of meaning, about which he came here for a reason, and also his name was Hero Jimmy. While Jaime stood still, he inspected the territory and the locality, what was happening here in general. He was able to see how some entities with flying hands were strangling some people. Most likely these hands belonged to the hero, on whom he, so to speak, began to hunt down all the evil and impolite people who spoil other people's lives. The arriving hero decided to turn to Stella to explain what was happening here. Terrified to the end, she asked again that she should tell everything. Stamen shouted and asked who the hell he was and why he was here on his territory. Jimmy thought and thought about what he had planned and why there are territories where people are controlled. He was interested in how it would end. Meanwhile, Stella thought, he is not from the heroes of the Sword Gang. The hero Golem Ego is seeing this for the first time. Stella immediately understood that if he does not know him, then she can make him take her side, and she will be able to make Steinman an enemy and free the island with his help. Free all the people who suffered here and were doomed to eternal torment. The girl immediately screamed and began to act, saying that this crazy henchman of the hero of the sword. She also spoke about the fact that he captured Chechu Island and destroyed all the people he saw. Therefore, he's considered an evil hero who wants to enslave and humiliate everyone. While she was saying all this, the hero didn't like the fact that she was telling all sorts of nasty things about him, so he decided to simply squeeze her like the very soldiers he destroyed. While he was squeezing his doll with the help of his hand, he also asked her if she had confused anything. The guy heard enough, and he only wanted to ask one question to Stamen. In anger, he only asked once again if this girl was telling the truth or if I had heard, straining his muscles with evil intent and filling his thoughts only with the pain that he would experience in a few seconds. To which Stamen sharply drew attention, and having made sure that he was not joking, he simply declared, "And what if yes, that she is telling the pure and frank truth? And what will he do to him?" he thought. "He will kill something," Stamen thought. James understood that even if he did not hide the truth, he would be able to destroy him with a quick and cruel end, so he only said that he should die and never be reborn again, and not appear in the world such scum as he cannot exist in this world. He abruptly took his stance and took his spear out of his cloak and used his spearman's stance to end it all quickly and painlessly if possible. He looked at the hero with such pitiful eyes that he could defeat him in 2 counts. After all, she has a whole army of dolls on which he can control all of them. Therefore, it will be easy for him to defeat him. All hands abruptly switched to Jimmy, who only in one moment saw about 7 hands that were directed at him to catch him and crush him. Also, in addition to the hands, there were eyes that could actually shoot lasers from their eyes. The lasers were aimed at James, and all the other hands asked to catch him as quickly as possible and in one moment. The guy used only a small part of his abilities to destroy the dolls and develop them into small pieces with his movements. After that, he made a big dash to the side of the laser, which in an instant became faster than the laser itself, and ran away from that place further, heading straight for the Steeman, who did not expect such a quick outcome of events. He immediately saw, with a frightened look, how James was quickly moving in his direction. The hero had nothing left as he defended himself from a blow that a guy with great speed and powerful strength would inflict on him. True, the hero, instead of just hitting, he pulled out a spear. He cut off 2 hands with the spear, and Steinman experienced a shock that he had not experienced before. After all, he saw how his hands flew very high with such an incredible quick blow. He had never seen such a speed. Of the heroes, he even thought for a moment that this was not a hero but some kind of monster. But quickly realizing that no one else could tear his hands off him, he only remembered that it hurt like hell, and he screamed, after which he screamed at the guy even more. How dare he, and why did he do it? Because he is on their side. They are both heroes. Why should they protect these lower forms of life? They are here for this, to make this world better, said Steinman. For that, he received only a very quick blow. Thanks to Jim for such words about people who live in this world. The guy approached the armless man standing there and told him that it was the end of him, and he would no longer be able to live in this world and carry evil in the environment. After that, Stephanie immediately understood that he was definitely an unusual person, and that he was 100% a hero, but he was kinda good. Stella was very surprised how the hero beats the second hero, and they fight each other as this has never happened before. She probably realized that this is the only chance to still restore peace with him, and she also noticed that he is extremely aggressive towards the hero sword. She thought that it was possible to help him with this. While the girl was wondering who this guy was, he began to interrogate the hero, whether he is the hero of the sword, whether this hero wears light silvery white armor. To which he shouted that he did not know anyone according to his description in silver armor and with a sword. He did not know anything about the leader at all. And the guy simply cut off his leg, to which the guy once again cried out in pain. Jimmy replied that for every ego I don't know, he will cut off one part of his body if he tells a lie. So he asked him not to say the word I don't know anymore and only tell the truth. The guy again asked him if there were any heroes in white armor and if he had a sword, to which Steinman replied that there was, only he asked not to destroy him. Taking away the spear and helping him to stand up, he asked him where the hero in silver armor was now, to which Steinman remained silent and looked at him with a malicious look, hinting that he would not tell him anything. Jim saw that there is no result in the fact that he normally interrogates him. So he cuts off one more part of his body so that he still achieves some kind of result. This time he said that if he already has no part of the case, the next one will be the head. So he once again asked him the last time where the hero of the silver spheres with the sword is now. In response, he heard that he asked for mercy, and that they try to save him and bandage him early so that he does not run out of fluid, and does not leave this world with such a terrible end. Although he asked for mercy, the hero only thought that he would not be able to spare him, that he had lost his humanity. Well, he just smiled and told him that he wasn't talking to him. After Steeman's words, a bunch of eyes and hands flew at him immediately to grab and destroy his ego. The golems attacked everyone at once. They attacked both Stephanie and Jimmy at one point, Stella said. What exactly is she? In one moment, everything around was shaken by such a powerful blow, and all that happened from the golems was just a big rumble. And while all the golems attacked Stefan and Jimmy, Stayman just flew away from them on one of his puppet's hands to try to report information about the trader's arrival. But while he was flying, he suddenly stopped in the air on 2 hands and simply decided to remember something. It's a feeling that he forgot a long time ago. It was the same feeling when he got into the world of heroes for the first time. The hero remembered that once upon a time, a long time ago, he fell into a world that was not yet saved, and its inhabitants begged him. So he and she begged him to stay and help them. The hero wanted to hear only gratitude. Thank you for saving the world and welcome back. When the hero arrived, he only smiled at his father and told him that he had returned and that they could live as before. And he also asked his father if he was proud of him. But in response, he received only a lot of insults in his direction, and that his father hated him for the fact that he had disappeared for so many years. His father said that he was no longer his son, and that he should stop immediately from here. After these words, the guy had no choice but to turn to the government for help, and he went to the insurance company so that we could allocate some housing and material capital. When he came to the administrator of this insurance company, he turned to him and asked if he could take something, at least a loan or something similar, so that he could at least get used to something in this world. But in response, he received that he could not give material support, and also they cannot give housing to those who are over 18 years old. The administrator only said that he sympathizes with him, but the owner could not help with anything. So he asked me to please leave the building. Why is the guy only with sadness on his face and with despondency in his mind? Only at home. What is this law? Is this law what harms people? This guy thought only about how he would survive in the future. The guy really didn't want to die because everything he tried for would no longer exist. And then he noticed that his puppets could not stop the imposter even if he took them in numbers. Jimmy looked at the hero with hatred in his eyes, and with the desire to destroy the hero for what he did to the people of this island, as well as Stephanie, who was sitting on the ruins of the earth. But she did not understand what happened in the blink of an eye. Jimmy said that Stayman would not be able to run anywhere, so he asked him not to run anywhere and just accept his fate. And he also promised that the pain would be instant. Also, the hero felt a little sorry that he would not be able to convey to all the heroes that the same fate as him awaits them. While James was saying this, the hero decided to take a fist in his hands and stop him. At least not for himself, but for the sake of other heroes. So he decided to use his secret weapon, which should stop this Jimmy. The secret spell is used only in one word, and that word is flowers. After that, all of Steinman's dolls lined up in a circle and resembled a blooming flower, which began to look like a doomsday star that would shoot at any moment. Jimmy thought it was too dangerous for Stefana. He decided to stop him before he fired, so he activated his element of electricity. In order to create one of the fastest shots at the enemy, I charged him with his energy and aimed well at the enemy. He threw his spear into the bow of the end. This technique is also called a divine throw. While the spear was flying at an unimaginable speed, the beam already had time to shoot at the spear to reflect it. But the spear turned out to be too fast, so the doll that looked like an eye experienced the sharpest blow of the spear. Having flown through a dangerous beam, Jimmy was able to stop two birds with one shot. Behind this eye was a hero through whom a spear flew. Passing through Steinman, he could not do anything at that moment, not dodge, not stop the blow. Literally after the blow, the hero only coughed up liquid, which only meant that there was no way to save him, and he would not be able to run away to heal his wounds and report to everyone else that there is a person who is able to stop all the heroes in Japan and put an end to all of them. Meanwhile, Stephanie was only watching how quickly this all happened. She was only thinking that this man had destroyed all her suffering literally in 1 minute of his presence next to her. A little earlier, there was a time when he was more alive, when he only left the world where he was important to people and all of humanity. At that moment, one of the girls said only to correct a little to the right, directing someone. She sent the same dolls as the Stayman had to put up the statue. The girl invited the letter that she had finally finished together with her adventurers. And even if it was a little for the hero, they could do everything so that he would thank him. The girl suggested to her interestingly that they should all pray to Stayman for the fact that he was such a valiant and good hero for their world, and they happily agreed with her, only smiling. All of them are adventurers, people of this capital. They all prayed before the hero in order to honor him in this way, for the fact that he was able to find peace in their world, and because he valiantly served them all, and to honor him for the fact that he helped them all to rejoice and do not live in fear, because he was able to destroy the monster. All of them were happy. The hero will be happy that he was able to return home and find his peace in his world. True, they did not mean that Steinman would literally find peace. Also, after the end of the hero, the golems controlling the island turned into nothing but dust. For the first time in such a long time, after the end of the golem hero, peaceful times have come to Chaju Island. People began to come out of their rusty, rotten hangars and began to see the sun more often and enjoy life as before. All the people of this island were very happy that they were finally safe, and that they had survived all this together, and that they would be able to live in peace and quiet as before. While there was peace in the whole world on this very island, they were thinking about what to do here in order to create an economy again, and expand their horizons on the investment world. Jimmy, who looked at it all from the old side, he was only a little proud of what he had done, and the fact that he was able to conquer at least one island from the suffering, and also the fact that it will not be far from the end, and he will free all of Japan from all the heroes of which he will meet and find well. And he will also take revenge on the armadillo with a sword who just lost weight. While he was watching how the other family was reunited, he was only touching, but deep in his soul, he remembered his family, which was the most important for him. He understood that he had a greater responsibility for all the lives of those he saved, so he would continue to save all people so that this would not happen again, and that all people would live happily. While he was watching that family, he imagined that this was also his family, his father, his mother, his grandmother, and also his sister, who loved him, and wanted everything to be good. Looking at this whole picture, he just told himself that they were all lucky, that each of them has 7 people with whom they can reunite and become happy people again. The real lucky ones, thought the guy. While he was watching, suddenly someone stirred in the bushes and he decided to pay attention to who might be there. By his instinct, he immediately pulled out a spear, but there was Stefani, who did not expect that he would pounce on her with a weapon. The girl did not expect that he would point a weapon at her, so she was happy that it was Stephanie. She just wanted to ask why he is hiding here, because everyone loves him. It is very interesting who destroyed the golem hero, so she suggested that he go to them. The guy spread the fact that the knowledge that the hero destroyed himself would not give them anything like that. He was right in something, or vice versa. This is only you will cause them even greater horror, so the guy did not dare to go to them. But Stephanie very much wanted him to went. Jimmy also said that they are interested in calming them down later. Stephanie only thought that even though he is a hero, he is the most real good guy, and Raz already worries about other people who surround him. If he had not been kind, he would not have even thought about their feelings. Stephanie accidentally said the last phrase out loud, so he answered that let him think as he wants, because she still won't see him anymore, and he will see her. The girl decided to ask only one question. Is he not going to destroy all the heroes? Well, he replied that this is exactly what he wants, and he will do it. He will kill everyone who unites with the hero in white armor, the hero of the sword, which only brought suffering. Stephanie begged the hero and replied, "No, is this revenge?" But what did the hero answer? Yes? And what could this be? The second one is similar, Stephanie asked. Well, Stephanie thought about it and told the hero that she also wants to take revenge because of the heroes, her family disappeared and her friend died. At that hero, while she was listening to her, he was only thinking about whether it would be right if he took her, and what would be the point of her. So he exclaimed that it was better not to do such a thing so that she would be safe. So he told her. Jima decided to ask her if she was in her right mind. But Stephanie replied that she knows that he thinks that she will interfere, but in fact she has some information about them that can help him overcome them. Stephanie decided to ask the hero if he knows where there are other heroes like him. Well, Kiru was surprised, and I think how did he know? But Stephanie immediately declared that she knew. She saw everything with her own eyes when she fled from Seoul, Najutsu from one island to another. She knows in which region each of the heroes settled. Even some of them and their abilities were known to her. The girl said that she would be useful to him in any case. And she knows a lot of interesting information that you can use and defeat the hero in case of something. Heroican was in a salyu, and on the way there they had to spend the night somewhere. That's why Stephanie took herself in her hands and told him everything. First of all, he would need help. He would need to ask the locals, find out how best to get to the right place or where to eat, where to stay for the night. So she wants to take it all on herself. That's why she asks very much I will take her with me. Stephanie declared that she would become his guide. The guy wanted to ask only one question. Why does she want to check everything? Why does she want this? That's what the guy wanted to ask her. He also decided to add that if she stays here, she will be safe, maybe even lead a peaceful and happy life and never meet the heroes again. That even if she does not have special powers, she wants to fight together with him and achieve a lot. She decided to look into her jacket to get a bill from there to show her boyfriend. This piece of paper turned out to be a photo of her and her family. She also lost her family, and she hates heroes with all her heart. And she wants everything in the world to go back to normal. She wants to do her part in this matter, but she doesn't have the same strength as him. So that's why she asks to help her, and she will help him in return. She very strongly asked him to take her with him and so that he could help her, so she almost burst into tears, begging him to take her with him. Stephanie really wanted to take revenge for her parents and for everything the heroes did. She just wants revenge on them. While everyone was enjoying the newly found sense of freedom, Stephanie and Jimmy have tied themselves to this very freedom with the good, that together they will defeat all the heroes who prevent them from living in peace, so they will free all people in all of Japan. The guy once again decided to check and tell her that if she is not afraid that he can use her for his own purposes, or leave her. Let's say she follows him. Well, Stephanie didn't even pay attention and just ran after him, realizing that the words he could say could be true. For the time being, their base was near the same garage, from where all the people who lived there a little earlier ran away. While Stephanie was only thinking about how to get them to the next place, the guy decided to sharpen his spear to be ready for the next battle. While he was doing this, he was only thinking about what they will do next, where they will move next, and who will not be their future enemy. Even though he is a hero, there may be opponents who can be several times stronger than him, so he will have to be ready for everything, although he trained probably more than all of them taken. While the guy was thinking about his enemies, Stephanie just watched him sharpen his spear, thinking that he was sharpening this spear so hard that it might turn into dust. In order not to just sit idly by, she decided to take out a notebook and ask the guy what kind of strong hero he wanted to choose, who was nearby, or what was weaker but still needed to be reached. The guy somehow didn't think much or didn't pay much attention to this, so she once again repeated, "What is his choice?" He thought about it, but still said, "The one who can be destroyed as soon as possible." The girl smiled in his face and said that he was in his repertoire and that he would choose the first option. Therefore, she calculated everything, said that then the hero of the sea dragon will be his next opponent. Gathered all the information. Stephanie reported to him that she is a terrible hero of the seas who destroyed those of the ocean fleet. And she is also strong and has good techniques, so she would very much like to get rid of her as soon as possible. She also has a pet sea dragon similar to a nuclear bomb. Stephanie says so not just based on information, but through the eyes of which she personally saw everything. With her own eyes, she saw a bright flame. Together they bought a huge number of people in ships fleeing from Sol Lanchejo, as she called the island they were on at that time. The girl saw with her own eyes how hundreds of ships and fleets perished, right in front of them. She understood how terrible it was, and she was very sad that day and again did what she did not want to do. She again remembered that fleet and those actions. Well, the guy looked at the sad Stefana and just walked up to her and said that if she didn't talk as if these were her sins, this is some kind of achievement. The guy only once again reminded that their opponent is a person, so he would not want them to be interested in this, since everything else should not interest them. And the girl also decided to tell the guy that the only thing important to them is that they will need a ship. After all, they will be fighting on the water, so she offered the help of one of the sea floaters. Stav did not say that the surviving sailors returned to the ship, and the approved hero of the golem is slowly restoring it, so they may well go on it if he asks them. Soon, after a few hours, Stephanie asked the commander if he could give them help on the water, so he gathered all his sailors and decided to go to negotiations with them. All around them is fog and cold wind, and the commander who says that for the sake of their fallen comrades. He and his whole team will accompany them all to the very end. Meanwhile, there was a storm on the coast of the South Sea, near which there was a whole sea hurricane. This was one of the defense systems of the sea dragon that was lying with its mistress on the stone. A friend of the sea dragon decided to wake up and look around to see what was going on. He suspected something was wrong. Well, right away the landlady calmed him down and told him that everything was fine here. The hostess reassured them that they would never set foot on dry land again. There was a morning on which sat one of the sailors who was digging the ground to create traps for animals, so that later there would be food that they could take with them. While one of the sailors was sitting and resting, the captain decided to approach him and tell him that there were 2 hours left for sailing, so he asked him to hurry. The sailor did not immediately pay attention to the captain. Therefore, in order for them to show that he is resting and even smoking, he decided to put out a cigarette quickly. After that, the sailor decided to stand up and speak to the captain, saying that he doubts that this is the right decision, because they do not know anything for sure, whether he is a normal person or not. Alarmed, the sailor said that the hero who destroyed the hero of the golem could he be on their side or not. He also insisted whether they would even be able to destroy that monster together with the hero, and return the land to the island, even if they might be able to return. But it is unlikely to destroy Kim Minsa. The sailor wanted only one thing. He wanted the captain's answer, and he was not interested in anything else. The guy only asked why they all needed to voluntarily return to that hell from where they ate. They got out with the whole team. Of course, the captain decided to answer the sailor, saying that if he destroyed the hero golem, he is also going to destroy all the remaining heroes. In addition, they are not sure of anything anymore. Also, the captain said that what he had done for them was already a sufficient example of trusting him. The captain told how the 30 soldiers who were his sons died, and he is very sorry. But for the sake of his descendants, he wants to stop all the heroes. He sacrificed his own life so that the rest of the people could live in peace and prosperity. If he met his sons in that world, he hoped that he would be able to tell them that. Even after they left them, they did not give up and will continue to fight with the heroes, who if not them. After such a word from the captain, the sailor even burst into tears and could not hold back the tears, and said that thanks to those sailors and his friends, they were able to stay alive, so they should do everything in their power, so that their end was not in vain. If the hero whom they are going to help, and who seems to be stronger than Min Su, it can be considered that their sacrifice marked the beginning of the liberation of their country. After that, the captain turned his head to the sailor, and asked him if these reasons were enough to return to hell. And they also went to sea. Sometime after being sent to the South Sea, there were a lot of sailors on their fleet who just wanted to defeat the evil hero who wanted to take over their planet. The sailors understood that they would not be able to come even close in a straight line, but they also understood that they needed to help them as much as possible to him, an ally of Jimma and Stefana, so that he could overcome the main problem of all the seas, and finally release the ocean currents of water, so that the Carols could once again swim with the current. While they were sailing, James and Stephanie worked out a plan. In this very plan, Stephanie drew the hero himself and his pet to clearly show James who he was dealing with in battle. Stephanie tried to draw a picture, but she was not very good at drawing, so in general she showed the hero of the sea dragon, and it looked something like this. After that, the hero replied that his next opponents would be a worm and a stick, a cucumber. After these words, Stephanie blushed sharply, and was a little embarrassed by the shame of the fact that she does not know how to draw. She also stated that it was possible not to find fault with her drawing, and the girl also said that she does not know how to draw. He coughed into his hand. She only pretended to be more serious, and in any case, the main thing is that they work in pairs. Although this is what makes them different from the other heroes, because no one works in pairs anymore, except for the worm and Lady Trident. The hero replied that she meant that they can act separately, that the sea dragon can act independently. This seemed quite interesting to the hero, because not every pet in their world is smart enough to act independently. They always need teams or something like that. After that, Stephanie added that the judge, because she saw it, is not quite like that, as the girl always stands on the dragon, and he does not move until she gives it. So Jimmy is basically right. She gives him commands that he carries out. It seems to Stefan that in their couple she plays the role of the brain. But the dragon is already feared and benevolent for brute force. James became interested in what style of attack the dragon belongs to, and also the couch he sits on. As much as she understood during the fight with the soldiers, the dragon began to emit flames or capsize ships. But at the same time, the girl was defending herself from armored bullets aimed at her, and also in the form of missiles or torpedoes. After considering the results of Stefan, James only realized that if the attack and defense were to deal with them at the same time, it would be salty. Therefore, he would have to act very quickly and maneuverably, and he would also have to come up with a plan during the battle. Stephanie wanted to tell Jimmy that that's why she thinks that something happened to a friend. Suddenly, the ship was engulfed in some unusual waves, and one of the sailors decided to call them and ran here. Stephanie did not have time to agree on anything and only, with an incomprehensible look, looked at one of the sailors who had a look in his eyes, who said something terrible. They were waiting to see a monster, but they saw only a small storm around them. But also their entire team was very worried by this storm. In order to find out information, Jimmy decided to stop one of the sailors and ask him what happened on the ship and why everyone was so stuffed. After that, he turned his head with horror in his eyes. He replied that the radar detected an unidentified object that they had never seen before. The other sailor on the ship was looking at the radar. Thus he checked and reported everything to the captain so that he would give the best orders for them to do next. The sailor reported to the captain that on their horizon more than 300, after a second the radar detected already 400. So he asked the captain what to do if the radar found so many unidentified objects. He reported as much information as possible, but he also doubted that they would be able to cope at all, since there were too many unidentified objects. Jimmy found out that the radar detected a lot of objects. He just thought that a collision would happen soon, so he ran faster to the tip of the ship and began to wait with his spear, saying earlier that Stephanie would stay in a protected place. But good luck. I returned to the whole team with kindness. Since these 400 objects turned out to be innocent fish that were floating away from something huge, the truth is that it is not clear from what. The whole team was in their places and just waiting for orders from the commander-in-chief to be safe, as well as all this fish. Although it is small, its quantity can damage the ship, so they had to shoot all the fish that were headed in their direction. Therefore, even though there were such a lot of fish, they had to obey the order and fulfill their task by shooting all the fish that were headed for their ship. After that, in one moment, all the fish that swam to the ship, they all just started to flow around the liquid, which was quite scary to watch. Stephanie was only surprised and said that these were just fish, and in fact they should not have been chewed. There were so many fish that even after some were shot, some fish still managed to even climb onto the deck. Stephanie simply could not understand what kind of nonsense this was. That they were only in vain panicked only for the sake of some fish, and in general no trouble threatened them, not in their lives. Well, James answered that the fish were scared, they swam away from something. It was immediately clear to Jimmy that they were already approaching them. Directly on the course in front of their ship was a huge funnel that could not have been created in the usual natural way. So as quickly as possible, the captain decided to give an order to turn the ship as quickly as possible so as not to fall into this funnel. But while the captain ordered them to go around the funnel, it turned out to be far from the most ordinary funnel, but only a core in which the dragon and some girl were hidden. These were characters who were very similar to Stefana's description. As she said, there was a dragon, and there was that same brain girl, with a trident, who herself declared that the hero who destroyed the golem hero was standing right in front of her, and she was very interested in destroying him personally. While this girl was talking, the dragon had already started charging his mana in his mouth to destroy the entire ship, so they had to heal as quickly as possible. The dragon looked at the captain for a moment, and told its commander to start recovering from the projectile as quickly as possible. Otherwise, all of them would not survive this blow. At the same moment, Jimmy shouted for the crews to drop anchor as quickly as possible to return from the blow. After that, it was a shock for the captain and the helmsman. After all, they were literally in front of them. There was a monster. If they drop the anchor, they will raise it for a long time, and they will not be able to swim away from here. So they were a little shocked by it. We only have the captain even sweating a little with an alarmed look. The helmsman suggested that he is carrying some kind of nonsense, so he suggested to the captain to turn the ship around now so that he could sail as far away from this monster as possible. Well, the captain only calmed down and thought that everything is fine. He said no. He suggested that they will follow the hero's order and not step back. Because who are they after this? If I don't just give up like that. I just saw that the enemy is staring at them. Maybe this is not their last chance. Resist him or destroy him altogether. Therefore, quickly collecting his thoughts, he ran out and shouted to one of the crew to drop anchor faster. After that, the crew immediately dropped the anchor into the water. The two descended very quickly to stop the ship as quickly as possible. The hero only telepathically ordered his pet to make them disappear from their path as quickly as possible. The dragon could not dare her command, so he bent down as much as he could and began to shoot like a laser straight at the ship, leaving not a single living unit behind. At this moment, Jimmy decided to transform his spear and try to protect the ship with his power. Saying the words, "protective spear and kill," is an ancient element that he learned in his world. This spell turned an unusual spear into something unusual. After all, it was similar to something like a cross in a church, and it sounded like a red demonic color, the union of 2 times angels and demons. Not everyone in his world could teach such a skill, and that's what he and the hero taught him. One of the most legendary barriers appeared, which was similar in the shape of a star. While he was not holding this very spear, he shouted to all the crews, to all the people who were on this ship, that they should not stick out in any case if they wanted to live, because this blow would be almost final. After that, there was the biggest explosion in the clear. The beam between the barrier and the hit of the heroes tried with all his might to break through this blow, while Jimmy tried with all his might to interrupt the blow. While Jaime stood and held the blow, he only thought that this was the strongest blow that he held with his spear. After all, this blow on Syria is his hero's, and it cannot help but rejoice that his training was not in vain. And if this is just one of the pawns of the hero in silver armor with a sword, then he imagines how strong he is in himself. So he trained for a reason and will be able to overcome it with this barrier. But he still believed that he still needed to train a lot. All the same, even if Jimmy is damn strong, it doesn't mean that he doesn't have weaknesses in main or in strength, but it only means that he is much stronger than he was before. And all the same, and he will not be able to protect all the people who are on this crew. Maybe he will survive. One of the sailors knew how to help Jimmy. He decided to offer the captain to allow him to attack the monster in such a way as to distract him so that Jimmy could protect the ship. As soon as the captain heard this, he immediately understood what the sailor wanted to do, so he immediately began to act. With a quick movement of his hand, he raised his hand to the radio to tell everyone on the ship to open fire on this monster. Picking up the phone, the captain began to shout at the top of his voice to his entire crew to prepare for battle and to aim at the monster's head. The crew immediately began preparing for the shot and waiting for a remarkable moment from the end of their gun. After that, the captain gave a report: 3, 2, 1, fire. All the cannons fired at the monster at once, and they were so loud that the monster could even smoke a little, and they fired such a large amount of fire after that. So they helped the hero with their weapon support. The entire crew activated all the weapons that they had all the combat power. They decided to hit the monster with one blow by launching rockets. There was nothing left for the monster and its mistress, except to repel all these blows. Otherwise they might be dangerous for them. The hero of the dragon decided to take everything into his own hands and simply repel all the missiles and all the blows that are inflicted on the dragon of her loving pet. She reflected all the missiles and all the blows with the help of one beautiful spell called Shield of Atlantis. This spell allows you to reflect any damage from the enemy. The only weakness in this ability is that it consumes a lot of mana. One of the greatest spells was used by a hero who was not satisfied with the fact that small bugs are trying to interfere with her pet. I saw the captain and one of the crew how she was able to easily repel all their military power. They were a little disappointed and also panicked because she repelled all the attacks instantly. What should they do next? They simply do not understand, since they have not encountered such a long. We will see how dangerous their enemy is. The captain only told his crew that they should not lose heart. After that, the captain just knocked on the table and invited everyone that they already knew that their weapons are nothing against them. Against the heroes, they must distract them no matter what, and this is a duty to their hero. The determined captain said that the entire crew should use all the ammunition as much as possible, that they would continue to shoot and use all the ammunition, and that they would use all the firepower to distract this monster as long as possible. There was another large-scale shot from the ship, and in the same way, another rocket and all the ammunition flew directly at the monster, leaving not a drop of dust from the surrounding explosions. While the whole crew was firing at the monster The heroes fought worthily, and until now protected the ship from all the lasers and all the damage inflicted by the monster and its owner, even though the owner was just standing on top of it. But she fed the monster with her mana, while the hero stood firmly and clutched his shield as hard as possible so that the blow would not be reflected in any case. He only told himself that their ships and all their weapons are not so useless, because they distract attention a lot. He immediately noticed that while he was protecting the ship from the laser, he saw that after the hero put up a shield from the missiles, the power of the dragon's flame began to weaken, which was in the hero's hand. Also, the hero understood that if his guess was correct, then she and the dragon had a common reserve of mana, as it were, for two, and if he stole one of them, they would have a chance to defeat them. The hero did not know what to expect from this hero and from the dragon. He only hoped that she would not create any problems in the future and would not be able to do any tricks of her own with the dragon, which can interfere with the whole plan that the whole crew and he himself is working on now. Then maybe they won't have a chance anymore. Continuing to stand in his place, the hero began to run out of strength. He slowly began to lose consciousness, but he still endured, and he could endure like this for a few more hours, so he just held on and tried not to be destroyed until he used up all the mana. But he also understood that he needed one perfect moment to deflect the blow and finish what he had started. At one point, the hero noticed that Jimmy began to move forward. She noticed that the dragon's flame was weakening, and she didn't like it very much. And she liked that it turned out that she was also weak, and she decided to take all her hands. He twisted the one he took several times around his axis. She raised her spear. She was only convinced that she still needed to get her hands dirty and try to achieve everything herself, and destroy the main reason for their long absence from the calm sea. She realized that she just needed to get rid of the hindrance due to which she had to use the shield, so she decided to raise her hand up and still decide to take and destroy the hero in one moment. Having taken her trident stronger, she decided to enchant him with her ability of electricity, and simply pierce the ship through the shield of the shield. Swinging, she spoke to enchant her trident. Atlanta's trident is one of the strongest spells in her world, the most spelled. Having taken a small acceleration, she only swung and threw her spear very far with all her strength. Or, without showing her appearance, she only strained her muscles a little. The flying spear flew past her through the shield she created, and cut in two the rocket that was flying at this very shield. This trident was so sharp and fast that even she herself would not have been able to stop it. But she can do something interesting. Flying through the pile of rockets, the trident was already approaching the very shield that Jimmy had created. The trident had such a trajectory that it flew to the edge of the shield a little higher than itself, so it could easily pierce a large part of the ship's hull, because it could control it anywhere. She moved only a couple of fingers up as the trident suddenly changed its trajectory, bending itself. After that, Jimmy saw it with his own eyes and got a little nervous. He also added that he was turning the other side. How could such a thing be? Jimmy thought it was very strange. He didn't even know that heroes have weapons like that, but now he will at least be more careful. Also, Jimmy noticed and understood that she controls this trident with the help of her two fingers. It is like a small thread that she guides along the path where it will fly, and because of this, he became uneasy. Because with the help of this trident, she could easily disassemble the ship into parts. If it weren't for me, there would be some kind of aura around me, which consisted of a bunch of such threads with the help of which she could take and pull them. Or it was more like a trajectory along which she walked. And all these threads are the trajectory of the future spear. After she turned her spear in the other direction, she decided to blow up one of the cannons on the ship on which one of the crew was, because of which he could die. Also, the trident sharply changed its trajectory again and destroyed one more crew member who was responsible for the missiles. After that, the trident changed its trajectory again 3 times, and decided to drive through the entire interior of the ship, through all the engines of the guns and the entire hull, after which the ship was essentially almost destroyed and could not sail anywhere, not back, not forward, but simply in place. And sooner or later he would sink, so the hero of the shield had to accept something as soon as possible, and also the captain and all his crews. One of the crew ran to protect his captain as the duty of a sailor. He had to protect all of them or protect the chief himself. He said that the captain should not get this trident in any way. Therefore, giving his life in exchange for the life of the captain, the trident pierced one of the crew before the eyes of the captain himself, who was alarmed and frightened at the moment when he saw how his right-hand crew, one of his sons, died right before his eyes. He manages to see that the captain suddenly felt something in his chest. He did not understand why he had this anxiety. He had 10 years of experience, and he was almost without anxiety, and was always cold-blooded. But at that moment, he felt fear, anxiety, and everything connected with his hero was only compassion. He also saw how the 3 destroyers suddenly changed their trajectory again and flew upwards, breaking through everything in their path. You were one of the main walls on the ship. He again got out and aimed directly at Jim, who was standing and holding his own spear protecting this ship. They drew attention to the fact that a serious danger was approaching Jamie, so Stefani and the sailor urgently needed to solve something, and they would do whatever it took. After that, the lady just looked at it and thought how he would solve this problem when the dragon's flame is on one side and her trident on the other. She just smiled and looked at what he said. And that was the end of the nameless hero, after which the trident flew as quickly as possible and reached its goal. A lot of liquid spilled out. Few people survived such a blow from a trident. Fortunately, or unfortunately, the hero did not die, but one of the sailors died, who sacrificed his life to save Jimmy and to prove that he was faithful to his captain and his will. So he stood up for him. He just wanted Jimmy to sit down so that every hero who destroyed at least one person, that every one of them would pay with his life for the fact that they decided to destroy people for their own benefit and for the sake of their hatred for the environment. While he was holding this staff, he was only thinking in his mind, who is it taken for? The hero became, in fact, the hero himself. He understood the words of the captain when he spoke to those kills, when they buried those people who had happened after the hero of the golem. Even after they left them, they did not let go of their hands. The sailor understood that if that sacrifice was not in vain, then he must also sacrifice himself to save the future, because thanks to him and thanks to all those who remained alive, they must complete what they started. They must do everything so that their end was not in vain. Therefore, one of the heroes, more precisely the sailors, began to protect one of the scum of the heroes, who soon became their ally with him, because he defends this ship with all his might. The sailor understood that behind the back of the anti-hero, let's say, was a real hero who protects people, protects with his life to save this ship. But even though the hero was strong, he needed all his strength in order to overcome her, and hoped that Jim's hero would still be able to gift everyone other heroes and destroy the silver hero with a sword so that he can achieve this goal. And while the fluid is slowly flowing out and suffering from pain in the chest, he is only trying to hold this trident so that it does not pierce him in any way, as he holds all the others with all his strength, so that in no way does this trident fly straight into the hero who holds the shield of this ship, Evil Dragon. While he was holding the trident, it was slowly falling apart, and the trident was not enough mana to fly around very often, because every object has its limitations, so he held it until the very end, until he ran out of mana into the trident. Well, the lady was very disappointed and surprised that he, an ordinary mortal, was able to hold the trident and he was not able to separate the hero, and she, by the way, placed big bets on it. After the trident became an ordinary iron pipe with sharp tips, he decided to say a few words before entering the other world. He asked Jimmy to make sure that these sacrifices were not in vain, and that everything that they had all achieved would turn into victory over his dragon and her mistress, so that she would pay for every person she impoverished, for every navy she burned. After which he coughed with the last breath of his body. He fell to his knees and began to die. He finally fell to the ground. The tip passed through him and shook even further, and he died. Although the hero didn't care because of these people, he still felt a little sorry that this sailor died. But he will fulfill his wish, and he will make sure that all the sacrifices that were made are true. For their sake, he is ready to take everything into his fist and try his luck so that finish off the mistress together with the dragon. After which he only vaguely looked at this trident and said thanks to him and everyone who fought to the end. After which he brought the trident closer to him, which was just an ordinary tool for finishing. He decided to endow him with his mana, since there it was, which the hero had, and completely lost it. So he, like with his spear, could return what she lost. Therefore, by charging this trident with his mana, he decides to return it to the owner in his own way, saying by enchanting the trident by freezing it with one of the frequent techniques on spears. While Jimmy was preparing for a retaliatory strike, the entire crew team that died in this battle met with a smile on the face of Jeff. That was the name of the same Jeff who did not let anti-hero Jimmy die. He was very glad to return to his brothers, and although he came to them so early, he apologized for being delayed so long and not coming to them earlier. They were all glad to see him. They were all very happy to see Jeff, but still he did not run away, so he deserved such a happy ending with his friends. Everyone was very happy to see him in such a place. There is also a small backstory when the hero lady was in her world. It was a very long time ago when she began to take revenge on all the inhabitants of the seas. Everything was wonderful in this world. There was one big sea world in which King Triton lived, who just took possession of all these riches of the ocean and all its inhabitants. In this world lived like half people, half fish, and also ordinary sea inhabitants, dolphins, rolling pinfish. And one young lady found herself in this most beautiful world who didn't understand how she ended up here. Well, like all the other heroes who ended up here, she came here a long time ago and she was very interested. And her girl was like some schoolgirls. Well, that's how it is, and she was about 17 and she was very smart, and also strong in spirit, which is why Triton chose her. and she was very much separated from the other townspeople by the fact that she wore an unusual uniform. She herself wore an ordinary school uniform. Although everyone else was more like the Greeks who were in ancient mythology, there were also guards with spears, and around this very building a little higher sea inhabitants swam, which only greeted her with their gaze and their fins. A little later, one of the hearing newts approached her, and he told her that this was the sea world of the dragon Atlanta. That was the name of this world. And these lands here were, of course, half people, half fish. And the girl stood out very much from her people here. But still, everything she was very well welcomed, because she is not just some girl, but also a future hero who will have to be taught a special skill, so that she can protect them from the local demon. In every world there is a local demon that attacks one or another universe. And then when the girls arrived, King Triton himself approached all of him in the sea, the king of all Atlanta, and he greeted the young lady very well. He also added that this was the first time he had seen such a young beauty who was very similar to himself, and he might not have noticed how she first appeared in their kingdom, which he was very happy about. He came a little closer with his servants and his soldiers. He only thanked and greeted the new hero, and asked if she liked his possession, and he also offered her a short tour of his domain. His servants also reported that when she first ate, she felt very full, and he was surprised when he saw that she reacted very calmly to what was happening. He asked the young lady. She must have already heard about what needs to be done to return home. Well, in principle, we all know it is necessary to subdue demons, and he also asked if she had been told about her responsibilities. Well, the young lady responded with what she was told. But for her, it's too unusual, but the newts could help her with their strength and their training. So he told her not to worry about it. Triton also added that gradually he would teach her everything. Everything would fall into place. And Triton also had to convey something to the young lady. Well, the girl with surprised eyes thought what it could be. What could such a majestic gentleman offer me? And then Triton showed her trident. This is her instrument, her weapon, and it has a truly ancient history. It was also passed down from generation to generation to eventually get to the hero of the sea dragon. And our heroine became this hero. After which Triton handed it straight into her hands sharply. And she reacted by saying that it was quite heavy, and it would not be possible to handle it so easily. She would have to work harder and sway to hold it properly. The trident belongs to her, so it is hers until the end of centuries. So now she is a hero and will temporarily rule this world with him until she returns home. He also added that he entrusts his life into her hands. He also decided to ask her again if he could rely on her, after which she bravely looked at him and raised her trident as high as possible to prove to him that she was faithful to him from beginning to end. Before her eyes there was only pride, and a moment to quickly become stronger in order to help this very newt as much as possible. To which he then crouched in front of her and said that it was great, and he could trust her, he also added, so that she would allow him to serve her as the hero of the sea dragon, so that the lord would become an ordinary servant for some girl for the people. It was quite strange, but such was the fate of the king and the hero. After which, as a thank you and tribute to her, he took her hand and kissed it to prove his devotion. Triton said that he would protect her so that this would not happen, and would stand on her side and would also always go with her to victory. This is how the story of the lady and her trident began. Okay, let's not stray far from the topic, because even now our Jimmy wants to fire back at her with 3 prongs having accumulated his mana. So he immediately accumulates as much mana as possible in order to properly teach this girl a lesson. She also threatened that he was looking at her with an evil look that we hated. She simply hated him for ruining all her plans. She also decided to shout at him so that he dared to touch her trident, and in general so that he would give it to her now, because this is her property, and her inheritance from her past kingdom. She shouted for him to return it to her as soon as possible. Otherwise now the dragon would have such a strong blow, after which not a single ship would be able to withstand this blow. And after that, she would laugh so much at him and how he and his crew were suffering. After which the hero decided to interrupt her and add that of course he would give her this staff. He would return it to her as soon as possible. But he will return it by sticking it right into her head, and nothing will stop him. Not her. Not her dragon. No one else. He just wants to take revenge on her for destroying innocent people. The entire crew died because of her, and all the people she drowned and drowned everyone, all civilians, military people, absolutely everyone who lived in Japan. After which the dragon decided to attack again a second time. But he attacked the same way as the previous time, but a little stronger. So the hero became even more difficult to control. But he also understood that the stronger the dragon does this, the less mana they both will have left, and this will only benefit him. Hold such a mighty fire. While the dragon stopped making a blow for a moment, he managed to collect himself a little. Therefore this time it was a little easier for him to strike. Then at one moment he wants to do what he originally intended, and he decided to create one maneuver and tell it to deactivate. All the fragments flew straight at the dragon, and she didn't even expect it because she thought that he was a fool for doing that. But in fact, he had a plan so that as soon as he breaks his defense, he charges her trident at full power and throws it straight at her head as I promised. Jimmy began to enchant this trident with the ice trident technique, so he copied her technique while she did not expect it. And he also added that it was a frosty path and then threw it at her. The trident flew with enormous speed. This speed could only be seen if you were a hero or you were faster than a flash. Therefore, the lady had to react very quickly, otherwise she would have died in an instant. While you simply don't understand what to do with this and only guess at one thing, she also caught herself thinking what? The dragon's flame froze, and for her it was quite strange. And how is this even possible if it cannot be, since this technique is very rare and not every hero can master it? So she decided to get down on her lap and ask the dragon for something. She asked him to stop attacking for now. He needed to focus on defense. After which the dragon abruptly stopped attacking and looked at her mistress since she would not give bad advice and decided to accept her choice. Having accepted the mistress's choice, he decided to stop his stream of laser into the sea and stop and take a defensive pose in order to properly deflect the blow. The girl decides to protect her pet by making a magical barrier right in front of the trident which flies straight at them. Summoning him, she shouts to summon the giant Esprit Tudiata shield. This shield consists of 5 barriers that could not be broken through. Almost no one and its creators, she and Triton, who tried and fought against the demon in their world, and with the help of this shield could not protect themselves very easily. Therefore, she doesn't even think that any hero will be able to break through this shield once or twice. It is also called the Giant Shield of Atlan. This shield consists of 5 parts which no one could break through, as I said earlier. But now we will see whether it will break through or not. The girl also added that even the pterodactyl demon could not break through. The girl does not doubt her strength and her shield, as well as their strength with the dragon. The hero is very interesting. Will Jimmy's strength be enough for one more hero? Will he be able to break through this shield of the pentagonal structure no matter how much he hits? But if he doesn't break at least one, it means that he is so weak that he might not even exist in this world. So let him just try, although the lady bets 100% that he will not be able to beat even the first level. Literally touches the barrier as the first barrier cracks into many fragments, after which it gradually breaks through the first level. The fragments and those that took place from the first level worry the lady a little, and she is worried that he will be able to get to them, even though this is only the first level. But still she is a little alarmed, after which she breaks through another level, the second one. This second level was much stronger than the first. She just doesn't understand how this happened at all. It can't be that some ordinary hero could break through her shield. It's impossible. The trident does not stop stopping, and it has already broken through the entire third level. The third level, by the strength of the demon, couldn't even break through, let alone the second and 3 in the first. I can't even imagine what she should do. Also, she's thinking about what to do if he does get to the very end. And she also thinks about what to do with the hero. When the trident began to nail down the 4th level, she simply did not understand how this was even possible. No one in the world could pass her shield. This shield is simply unimaginably powerful. How can it penetrate? He is definitely an unusual hero like all of them. She does not understand how this even happened. Why and who is he anyway? Where is he from? After the 4th level, he already stumbles with the 5th. And at that time, the first one simply decided to leave the deck and come closer to her in order to reduce the distance from delivering a crushing blow in which she would be at a disadvantage, and in 100% of cases she would die. The trident that disappointed Jimmy was completely nonsense for him. And all these shields were not serious for him at all. But breaking through the 5th level was already more difficult, unlike everyone else, to which the princess was a little more confident. How to say a little. She was very shocked that he broke through with the help of her magic. Almost all of her shields when everyone else could not easily achieve this even close. She simply does not understand how this can even happen. The trident of the spruce touches the account, which is cracked and says everything, but the lady only thinks about how she can then get away with the dragon if everything fails right before their eyes. But miraculously the trident stopped right on the 5th, and he couldn't break through after all he couldn't. But now they can attack, thought the lady heroine. But looking at the ship, she saw that there were no heroes there, even more so, and she simply didn't understand where he managed to get to while he flew straight at them. She looked out for where the hero could have gone and didn't understand at all how this could happen. Only a second passed. It's impossible. She started looking around and saw him, Jimmy, who stood on the sea and looked straight at her from below. Thus, he reduced the distance between them and can easily do something crushing with them. The monster that stands with an ultra spear of the end, or a spear, in fact, whatever anyone wants can call it. The lady realized that the ship on which there was a large number of crew was not, and the weapons of which were possessed by the entire crew. It was simply a ship, so that she could be distracted by it, and also with the help of it, it was possible to simply block her attack. And so she realized that all this time this whole ship was simply there so that the hero could get a little closer than he was. The hero, Mrs. Atlanta, found herself in the most unfavorable situation for her, because now the heroes are performing one of the rarest abilities in his kit, since he wants to destroy her with one blow. This technique is also called a life lesson. After which, with this spear of justice, he was able to simply make a huge blade that floated straight towards the dragon and the lady, and thereby cutting the dragon in half, which will be divided into 2 parts, and nothing could stop it. This attack cannot be cancelled or dodged or repelled in any way, since this is a blow of justice that is dealt with a very large amount of mana. But it also happens that it has a large cooldown on cooldown. I would also like to note that the radius of your attack is very large. With the help of such an attack, you can destroy more than 1 or 2 cities. There are almost no disadvantages to your attack except for the main disadvantages that it consumes a lot of mana, and there are almost no disadvantages in this attack. At least Jimmy Hero doesn't know the disadvantages of this attack. Maybe he will find out, but not soon. Also, in addition to the dragon, his mistress is divided in half, who still does not understand, and she is shocked by the fact that she lost, and the fact that all her life she thought that she had achieved the maximum strength that no one could achieve the same level, and she thought that this hero will be weak because all people are weak, even heroes. About the fact that she was not destined to be alive and happy as before, literally in one battle. She was happy together with her pet. The fact that all this happened to them because of her. It was all her fault. She simply did not understand what she had messed up in. And she understood the consequences that sooner or later those ships that she destroyed, all the people that she destroyed, sooner or later she would have been incarnated for this. She was in the gloom of her soul, ready for someone to come and punish her along with her pet, so she is not very upset, but still, she was sorry to say goodbye to life. Before the end, she just wanted to pet her pet Leviathan the dragon a little more. After all, it was he who spent almost the entire happiest life with her. It was the pet who taught her everything she learned. The dragon Leviathan was always next to her, even after she became poor to the demons. She always wanted to stay with him after all. This pet has always been special to her. Leviathan or dragon, this is not just a pet. This is her betrothed whom she loved, and even after the end she will still love. That's how one of all the heroes who captured Japan. She fell under the same section of punishment, and she was incarnated for the fact that she impoverished a bunch of people, a bunch of innocents. Most people did not wish harm to her and her pet, but she chose. This path is not as easy as the hero golem, which also had a no less unfortunate fate. Let's also go back to her past when she was in a world where she was truly happy, where she was a hero. One day the day came when they got together with the newt to kill the Triceratops. Because like the hero in silver armor in all the worlds, there was one rule to kill the main one, a villain or the main demon who seeks revenge on the whole world and threatened the entire empire of some country. Therefore, after she, together with Triton, was able to defeat the Triceratops, she could rightfully return home and live happily with herself as before. In different worlds there are different demons, different bosses, so they are all not similar to each other. Some may be weaker, and some may be stronger. The hero, and because of this, they were all called to their worlds in the same way. She is the only one who probably fought not alone, and together with the assistant, this same assistant was a dragon or Leviathan. I was very glad that I was able to defeat the word of the demon together with the dragon, and she would again be able to return home and to her parents, and be happy, and also be herself because she had come such a long way to free this world from the evil creature that threatened the whole world. Also, Triton, who served as the young lady, was the same Leviathan who could transform, like a person like him, into a fish or a monster. His original appearance is, of course, a man. But if he does not hold the power, or he is too weak, then he will become a Leviathan. After they defeated him, he decided to turn back into a human, and he also decided to run to the place where that same girl would fall because she was sitting on his neck. After which the class didn't blink. She managed to land right on his man's arms, hugging him. After which she even became a little embarrassed, and was a little surprised that he was able to catch her so quickly. After which Triton decided to praise the lady and say that they were able to do this. They overcame the evil fate that threatened this world. They called him the Villagers, which is why the charm of this name. He also couldn't help but notice that the girl was able to literally achieve many successes in just 6 months. And she managed it all alone. He was glad that she had become so strong, and he really regretted that they would soon have to say goodbye, because she might end up in her own world, and they will never meet again. Well, the girl was very embarrassed to hear this, but she was very curious about the fact that she would be able to return home after 6 months. She had not seen her parents for a very long time, but what she wanted more was for him to hug her like that for many more centuries, and not let her go from his arms. So she would like to spend most of it here with him, or go home, but only with him. After which they kissed, The kiss between the newt and the mistress lasted for a whole 3 minutes. In fact, this is quite a long time. But there was also a stunning sunset around them, which gave a lot of beautiful shots. Oh well, let's not continue to like such moments. Thank you for your understanding. After which, looking again at the newt, she could not take her eyes off him and simply tell him that goodbye. She also wanted to go with him wherever he went. The girl also thought that maybe this is love. Maybe this is her future husband. Triton decided to ask the young mistress why she was crying on such and such a joyful day. After all, they defeated the main boss who was the biggest problem for their world. You need to be happy. You don't need to be sad. This is the happiest day that he and his mistress could make. Well, the lady decided to tell him out loud that she thought that if they defeated the demon together, it means that soon they will have to part and they will never be able to meet each other again, which is why she is upset. She also told him that she was glad that she could return home, but now she does not want to live away from him and wants to be with him always. After watching how sad she was, he decided that he would follow her into her world and live with her. The girl did not expect such an answer from Triton, so she, embarrassed, began to rejoice that he could be with her all their lives and they could live together just like a couple. Triton also added that by repelling the forces of evil, he fulfilled his royal duty, so he can give his throne to his heir, the one he chose a long time ago if something happens to him. Therefore, he's ready to follow wherever she wants, and he can be not only as a pet or as a servant, but as her real man who will watch and keep an eye on her like a real guy. Although they both agreed to return home to her world, the people of the underwater world were dissatisfied with the fact that the king abruptly decided to leave their side and give his throne to his heir. Also, the people were a little worried, not so much about the throne, but about the king himself. After all, they asked him again, is he really going to the hero's world? Because their worlds and the hero's world are diametrically opposed? That is, if in this world there can be human creatures similar to fish, then in that this may not happen in the world. And then he may not be able to withstand such a load and you may even die. Also, the transition could turn into a disaster for the king, so the people would not want to let him go. But Triton added that if the hero adapted to their world without problems, then why is he the owner of the lord of these families cannot adapt to their world? Is it easy? Or do they think the fact that he is weak and cannot do this? He only remained silent and did not contradict the king of the seas. The next sea morning, he showed a new successor who will rule the entire ocean, and he himself fulfilled his mission, so he takes a legal vacation for the rest of his life. He only wanted to convey one message to his people, that now your king is gone, that now he wants to spend the rest of his life as an ordinary person. Such a fish will live with the lady mistress. After which, when they were already heading back to her, by the way, the lady's name was Anna. He decided to follow the usual customs of people, and the first thing he decided to do was take a step in declaring his love for his Anna, a real guy, and then an engagement ring that would mean that they will be a couple together from beginning to end. Anna and Triton really wanted to be together, so they promised each other that they would take care of each other until the very end, until the end separates them, and will not always listen to each other and love each other. So a little later they went to Anna's world. After they went to Anna's world, problems immediately began. Precisely those problems that the inhabitants of his kingdom were talking about. Since the world is different from each other, he began to undergo some of the most terrible atrocities. The fact is that since he explodes, he constantly needs water, and occasionally he still needs to turn into a fish, more precisely into Leviathan. When a cat accumulates a lot of hair, it sometimes tries to spit out this hair. In principle, a similar situation happens with the newt. It spits out fragments of its scales, which spit out and originate inside it, since it is a fish. Although this is a slightly strange outcome, it is still the world of people. It turned out to be a very destructive thing for the sea dragon. Therefore, he had a hard time living in this world. These fragments very much resembled crystals or stones. It felt like he was eating coral at night. But these are all the effects of this world. So you don't have to be surprised. Triton is a little shocked that he was able to descend to the level of an ordinary human being, even a little worse. Therefore, it was new for him to somehow hide it from his soulmate Anna. Soon he stayed there too long, so Anna decided to go to the men's room and still ask if Ally Triton was okay. She asked the newt if he felt unwell, because she understood perfectly well that she could sacrifice something, and not everything. Maybe it just couldn't be that an ordinary sea creature could move to land and live here like a normal person, even a very strong one. Soon Triton came out and said that everything was fine and he was not in any danger. In this way he lies everything to his soulmate, but he does this so that she does not worry about him, and so that everything is fine with them. So that Anna would not worry, he decided to distract her a little, took his hand and stroked her head. He asked her if they would continue their date, but she still agreed and did not show that she noticed. After another week, one day she returns home from work. Anna worked part-time in a local cafe where it was quite tasty. But that's not the point. The point is that she came home, and Triton somehow became very silent. Although he used to greet her every time from work, so she developed and decided to go into the corridor. While she was developing, she wanted to apologize to the ritual for being late, and because she was delayed at work, and then suddenly joy was renamed into some kind of fear or anxiety. She looked at the corridor on which there was an overturned bedside table, and also the shadow of some invisible creature that looked like a sea monster. It was a sea monster. It was most likely a newt that was unable to cope with its transformation. Therefore, immediately running into the room, she saw only empty furniture and no newt. But then, looking into another room, she found clothes and everything else overturned all over the cabinets, as well as a newt sitting in the middle of the room, and even crying a little from what he was turning into every minute. Triton really wanted to ask Anna not to come close to him, since he doesn't even know if he can control himself if she comes closer. But looking at the newt, she couldn't hear him at all, because she loved him very much, and simply couldn't leave him and not hug and feel sorry for her. So she ran up to him sharply and shouted for her beloved to stand still and not touch anything, coming closer. She hugged Newt very tightly and regretted that she didn't tell him right away that she immediately realized that something was wrong with him, and did nothing. It was her fault, she thought so. And she also thought that she had savings, and she asked so that they would go together to some uninhabited island on which only the two of them could live, and he could feel like a fish in water. She also stated that he would not have to mock himself if there were no people around, and he could transform whenever he wanted and into whomever he wanted. After such an act, Triton was only once again convinced that he was not mistaken in his choice, and she is the one he loves, and for her honesty, kindness, and love for him. With tears in her eyes, she declared that they could build a small house by the sea and live there as a happy couple. And they will live there happy and alone, but not offended and in freedom. She also asked Newt to never suffer again and to tell her only the truth. She prays that this will not happen again. Immediately the next day when they bought the ticket, they came to the port of Yeosu in the South Sea. There were a lot of people at this port, so they had to move carefully. Finally, they set off for the open sea on one of the gunpowder ships. Anna and the newt stood near the edge to watch how the birds flew and how the fish splashed in the water, of course, in some kind of cloak that was covered everywhere, and its appearance was almost invisible. The girl asked Triton to be patient a little longer, and that they had almost arrived. There was only a little time left before that island. Triton decided to look at Anna. He just stuttered and said that she would forgive him, and he would do something that he had never forgiven himself. He could no longer hold back, and he decided right here to turn into a dragon of the seas or a leviathan. After which there was a massive explosion that turned this ship from one to another as it turned into a very large dragon. After which this gunpowder ship, thanks to the fact that he got out, Triton screamed at the top of his lungs. Immediately after this incident happened, there was already news from all of Japan about a large-scale battle of a monster in the waters of the South Sea. It is very dangerous for all of them, for all life species. Therefore, the government decided that now the heroes had become traitors and they could no longer help people and only began to destroy them. Therefore, they began to destroy the target and, well, Newt. As many as 10 or 15 military ships arrived, who came for only one, to destroy the target and free Japan from the rebel heroes. But they didn't calculate their strength and sent only ordinary cruisers against the hero. It won't be so easy, especially against a 2-meter dragon and one of the legendary heroes of another world. Therefore all the ships sank and were in a cruel fire of poverty and destroyed. She looked at everything surrounding the fire and cruisers that were slowly sinking in the vast ocean with an unusually quiet and calm face, as if she saw it every day, but nothing could be done. Since people began to run into their wallpaper, it is not their destiny to destroy new ships every time and try to survive in sea waters. Anna decided to tell Triton that now, for them, the whole world they became villains. Literally, for one incredibly impossibly complex action, they became villains. And they did many good deeds for which they were valued. But having made only one mistake, they are now trying to destroy them. And Anna also asked that Triton protect her, and she would protect him. She wanted at least a little to switch places so that he would not protect her, but on the contrary, she would protect him. Anna wants to do for him the same thing that he did in turn. Here is such a small but good backstory of Anna and Triton. I even feel a little sorry for them. Well, I hope the newts and Anna will be in heaven with the fish in their joint kingdom in which they will be happy. Also almost dying, Triton responded with only a few words. He responded reciprocally and in his own words to her feelings that she loved him, and he also replied that he also loved her, and would hope that they would meet again sometime in the next life. Meanwhile, somewhere in the ruins of the city, the same silver and iron hero was sitting who was waiting for one of the servants to return to him and report all the information in order to be aware of all the news. Also to know how to proceed further with the so-called hero of the spear. While he was waiting, he only remembered his parents who loved him and looked for him, but he was also kicked out by his own uncle and aunt, who paid for it with their lives. If everything had been better then, he would not have destroyed all of Japan. The truth is that he will not return to the dead, and even those who died. Therefore, he had no way to go back. While he was thinking on such thoughts, his friend or his servant finally approached him. Freddy came to the hero to lend him all the information that he discovered from other heroes, and also from all the people he surrounded. Also, this hero. I was a hero of return. He had an unusual ability, and it's clear from the name. And Mark didn't care about everything that Freddy said. Sometimes he could say such nonsense that he didn't really ignite him at all. So he only looked at him with his cold gaze and understood all without words. The fact that the hero is not only strong, but he is damn sick to the fullest. Okay, Freddy, who came, decided to tell you everything to the hero, Mark. He decided to tell him that the hero of the golem and the sea dragon they were deprived of. They were deprived of the same hero of the spear. He also had photographs that were taken by someone unclear, either spies or the heroes themselves. Before fighting with them, it was unclear. But what was clear was that he was very familiar with the brand, and this person was exactly the one he regretted. Freddy also noticed that while he was looking for all this information, people began to have hope that all the heroes of all their soldiers would just be destroyed with a snap of a finger, and then the balance of their world would expire and end. Freddy understood that this meant that the end of the kingdom of Mark, which is part of the eternal crunch and sadness, could soon come. So Freddy decided to offer Mark, so that he would not stand still and do something. Because sooner or later, this will come, and then nothing can be changed. Freddy told Mark that he had to fight for his vision of this world, and also for these people to know who he is and know what he wants. After which, as Markov listened to Freddy, he decided to stand up and still show what he was capable of. So he just nodded and said that he was ready, and would get ready to hunt the hero of the spear. After which Freddy stated that this was already more like Mr. Mark, the hero of the great sword and silver armor. He was proud that he decided to do something because he hoped that he would manage this piece of land longer and be able to finally create his own world. Having gathered everything and taken his huge berserker sword, he decided to go and destroy the hero of the spear, or try to convince him that he was wrong and force him to go over to their side so that he would not upset their balance of the universe. And if Mark could not convince him, then we will have to make sure that the apocalypse approaches them and the inhabitants of this planet again. Somewhere in the world of the spear hero, in this world there was an amazing warehouse of all the hero's weapons, and he owned them very simply because he became a hero. Thanks to his friends and servants, he actually became a majestic gentleman in the eyes, and he also understood that he needed to own this entire warehouse wisely, so he kept every spear that he crafted or received as a reward in his safes. These safes looked like small pedestals for gold miners or the like, but these were for spears, which the hero constantly used earlier when he often traveled around the world in order to pump up as much as possible and become stronger. There were truly many of these spears, from 1 to as many as 15, and the number of spears could also grow. Whenever some of the rare materials are found, a new spear will be created, which is forged by the best blacksmiths in this world, especially for the hero. I won't load you with a lot of information about spears, because one of his servants or loyal friends was able to receive a report from him, a message that notified that the first Burbash spear would return, and the Antantic 5th spear would disappear, because these spears had the ability to teleport to different worlds in order to, so that the hero can hold any of these spears in his hand when he needs it. Lady Luna was very unhappy with the fact that he used spears in different worlds, but she was also happy that these spears belonged to him, and that they were all useful. And she was also concerned about transmitting the necessary data to her government as quickly as possible. And she also doesn't know what is waiting for their hero, so she takes care of the spears so that they are properly clean from rust and scratches in order to use them again in battle. Luna also understood that if the spear disappeared, it means the hero called it to himself and it must be used in battle, so she understood. The fact that the revenge that he had planned a long time ago began to be carried out. Therefore, she needed as much as possible, and not the entire team, to prepare for the battle, or at least prepare weapons. She understood that the revenge that the hero was also beginning to be carried out, and it was very, very close. Therefore, she, as the true right hand of her hero, had to call the blacksmiths, or order someone to call them, and should try to repair all the spears before replacing them again. The time for which they had been waiting so much had come, and the time had come when they needed to repay the hero for his merits. One of the guards who guarded all the copies of this place immediately began to listen to Lady Luna, after which he immediately went to the blacksmiths. While he was leaving, Luna only watched and began to cuddle up to one of the safe spears that served their hero. Luna was very worried about him, but she knew that he was so strong that he would not allow himself to be offended, and would even be able to fly past any enemy who stood in his way. although she was sad that he left and remembered those times when he had just come to them and did not understand anything around him. The first minute she saw him, he was an ordinary guy who was quite depressed, and he had eyes that reminded you of the horrors and the end. It's true that you get goosebumps when you look at his face. This face was one of hatred, but also thirsty for something gain the strength he lacks. Therefore, as soon as he came into this world, he immediately realized that this world would force him to become stronger. He devoted himself to all the training, like no one else. He gave his all to such an extent that he was able to learn the skill of the spear in just a week, something that could only be dreamed of by those who were even born into royal families and tried to learn the skill. They would have spent years and a lot of training, but he was able to master this skill in just a week. You train around him. The air is very highly compressed, and to such an extent that he could destroy any enemy in just 1 second. He trained as a true spearman. He could become an S-class adventurer, to which it took a very long time to level up, but he had no need for it. After several such trainings, he was able to break through a huge wall that was saturated with a huge number of stones. The hero trained without losing his touch every day. He trained from start to finish. He trained day and night, almost 24/7. Perhaps many of you will ask what exactly makes him train so much, so it's so difficult and cruel for him to train. And this is the revenge that he believes and wants to implement it as soon as possible. Almost no one can stop him except his companions, because only they control him and his body. So as soon as Luna noticed that the hero began to get tired, he did not even begin to stop, but simply began to lose consciousness. She decided to run up and stop him herself before he lost consciousness from the fact that he trained too often and for a long time. Luna asked the hero to stop. She suggested that he move on to the next training session so as not to get hung up on the same thing. Hearing how the moon suggested a different tint, he decided to grab her hand to show that he was not ready enough to move on to another training. She remembered that she should not offer him thoughtless decisions during training, as it could cost her life. Heroes, Jimmy began to prove to her that he was still too weak compared to that damn hero who mocked him and his family, who destroyed the entire city, all of Japan, which he could not protect because he was weak, and he should not be idle. Because in every second he can destroy some person who doesn't deserve it. No matter how much Jimmy would like to change any person's fate, he cannot do this because he is too weak until he trains to such an extent that he can destroy any monster or hero. He will not leave this training. He must prove to himself that he is worthy to move to another level of training. He remembered how his sister Debin died because he was such a weakling and could not protect her naturally. He felt so pathetic that he just vomited from himself. He realized that in order to become stronger, he had to train 3 times no 10 just so that he becomes stronger and can defeat anyone who dares to take a swing at him or his friends or family, to protect someone he wants most of all. So for this, he must become stronger. Jimmy took the task as it should be, and completed them without any hesitation or difficulty. He performed them like cracking seeds. He knew that if he could not complete one of the tasks properly, how could he defeat some greatest hero? He should have achieved such success so that no monster could be alive in his presence. He also ordered his adventurers not to interfere with him, and only if, as a last resort, he dies, only in that case they will help him. In the meantime, they should just wait and watch how he completes the task, and then tell him that he is pathetic, and he needs more training, so that he has more motivation to destroy everyone in his path, and protect those who are weaker than himself. While he was fighting with all the goblins in one of the caves where there were more than 100 of them, the adventurers were only surprised at how he was doing it, and they just looked around a little and thought that they had to stop him. After all, he could ruin not only ordinary goblins, but also them themselves if he played out. Therefore, while he was finishing off everyone without any complaints, Luna decided to tell him that he had stopped because he had gone too far. He had become too strong for this cave. They suggested that everyone leave here together, or at least help. Well, the heroes don't take it seriously at all, and simply cut off everyone's strength while the goblins, thirst for liquid, attacked him from behind, from the side, from the front, everywhere, even from below. Where do they look? Everywhere are these damn goblins who want his end, and also the end of the adventurers. But they decided to first bring down the leader and then attack other pathetic people. But the hero was so surprised and eager for the end that nothing could stop him, and nothing could surprise him. So I saw how a couple more goblins approached from behind while he defended himself from the front, looking at him. He quickly took his spear into his hands and pierced 2 goblins with one blow, from which the goblins themselves could not expect this. But they are just monsters who have no feelings and thoughts about her. Only pathetic monsters who wanted to impoverish one of the people in order to profit from them later, not in the flesh, no matter how scary it may sound. But at one moment his spear broke into 2 parts. One of the thick handles of the spear simply split into 2 parts. She could not withstand such strength and such intensity of all the enemies, because even though they knew the spear in order to squint everyone with a needle, A spear is still a spear weapon which is short-lived. After which, one of the giant mutant goblins decided to attack him. It was a goblin king who just wanted to get even with another leader, even though he was not a goblin. He loved to beat someone up and compete in strength to see who beats better. Therefore, he approached the hero from the back with his huge sword, who did not expect such a healthy goblin to attack him at such a speed. Therefore, having flown another couple of meters from the point of impact, he only collapsed in pain and prayed that this troll would not cruelly impoverish him with his own hand. Fine, the goblin only laughed passionately at the hero and wanted to beat him further, and then eat him in order to get enough of his flesh. And also the Goblin King did not respect him because he could not defeat him, even though he himself attacked from behind. The hero who looked down on everyone could not be distant from some pathetic goblin monster who only mocked him and his goal. He did not like it very much, so he only imagined how these goblins were very similar to that very hero. Jimmy imagined that these goblins were very similar to the very hero who mocked him and his family, as well as all people, considering them the most pitiful creatures. Although he himself was a man, he was a very cruel and narcissistic monster who could not be stopped simply by words, and it was necessary to leave only actions. In fact, Jimmy had a mental trauma after which he received it precisely after that accident, when he lost all his relatives and he hated everyone with all his heart. The idea was of a hero, and therefore, as soon as he saw his hallucinations of goblins, he really wanted them impoverished, and he was looking for this hero with all his heart and all his hatred. So as soon as he saw in these clubs on the hero who, having impoverished his family, he immediately poisoned that's where he was. He will pay for what he did to him and all his families. Literally concentrating a little into himself, he destroyed several hundred goblins at once, after which he immediately attacked the giant goblin himself, literally in the hand, with the embittered sharp tip of a spear to hit him in the very heart, so that the goblin, but in his case, the hero felt the very pain that he himself experienced. Having taken a good hold of the goblin's head, he began to make 24 blows with a knife, or rather with a spear. He only longed for this monster thug to feel what real pain is. Everyone was interested. They were simply surprised how the hero of the spear destroys one of the most difficult goblins, because this is the Goblin King who did not spare a single person, and even they would have found it difficult to defeat him. But he alone, with a weapon he had fallen out of love with, simply began to destroy it. In the literal sense of the word, they were too surprised, and also frightened by his actions and his motives. Therefore, from now on, they decide not to bother him as much as before, but to forbid him, they completely forget about it. The hero was so dangerous that she just screamed for this bot to die. The most cruel ending of a very terrible character on all fronts. You can only look at how one of the purchased ones only dies and dies. This is not the best sight to watch, but this is the essence of the injured hero of the spear. Everyone can cope with such a burden, because he lost everything he valued, just like Mark. But in his case, Mark became impoverished, whom he treasured, therefore such is the fate of all people. To be poor or to be poor is cruel but true. Over and over again, Jimmy repeated his deeds and did not leave anyone alive. The adventurers had never met such a monstrous person. Having finished destroying a whole cave of monsters, he just stood sleeping with this spear and thought about how to become stronger. Also, while he was thinking, he was still a man and not some kind of monster. So suddenly all the adrenaline and all the evil thoughts of the redeemed ones subsided, and he just simply sat down and then simply crouched on some kind of stone and began to think and also rest. While he was resting, he kept seeing hallucinations. His sisters and all his family were hallucinating. Every time he tried to relax, he kept having hallucinations. There were hallucinations that were not very strong, and there were those that were very scary for him, because his sister alone put a very big burden on her soul. She asked her brother to save her and take her home to her mother. It was a truly terrible hallucination. He saw such hallucinations very often. It could be his mother who asked him to save her, and also asked herself, said that she was fine and asked him to take care of his sister. Even the granny came to him, and also in very terrible nightmares. The granny then ran into a very large beam, and it just came out of her chest, and it was very frightening for Jimmy. After he relaxed, he only begged for everyone around him to leave, and prayed to find peace in his thoughts. In essence, he did not behave like a hero, rather like a greedy man or a vengeful spirit who only wants to take revenge on the hero in silver armor. While he was sitting near the fire, he was able to wake up Luna, who saw that he was not sleeping and could not sleep at all. She realized that he was tormented by nightmares, and as soon as she closed her eyes, she decided to look at him. What was he doing while he was just sitting? Luna realized that she would not be able to fall asleep so easily while he was sitting and just looking into the distance of the dense, dark forest while they were all sleeping. Having looked at the hero, she realized that he has not only a cold look, he has a deeply dying look that only asks for help, but no one helps him. Even if the moon herself decides to help him, he refuses her help, because in fact, he is afraid and trusts that then when he loses, he will suffer even more, which makes him not want to live. Luna decided that since she couldn't support him, she could at least heal him. So she decided to take one of the healing herbs to fix what she could. The hero of those who turned a cold gaze to the moon. Just by looking at her, he realized that she did not wish him harm, but he could not trust her. And Luna decided to approach him a little on the good side. Therefore, she put help on him. This help was quite ordinary, but she decided to smear him and told him that it would only make him feel better if he used it, so she offered her help to ease his wounds. Coming closer, she saw how from that battle on him there was no usual zone where there would be no scratches or scars. His scars were covered all over his back, and this was not only after the goblins, but most likely during an ordinary adventure, although she didn't know what happened there where he was injured. Luna decided to ease the pain so that she would kind of talk it out in front of him in order to somehow dispel the situation and tell him a little about herself. Since when he arrived, he was very scared and alarmed. She decided to tell him that in fact she was furious to fight, and she would like to finish her a battle in some accounting promotion. After all, fighting is very difficult and painful. That's why she wants to finish fighting with other monsters. But she also added that she is not going to do this because she wants to finish with the hero and destroy the main demon. Only after that she will go on vacation, or she hasn't decided yet. While she was saying this, she decided to ask the hero. Maybe she's minding her own business, but still, how can he appear in the family with such and such scars? To which the hero replied, what kind of family is there if he doesn't have one? Everyone died and he was the only one left. After which she decided to ask then, why all this eagerness? Isn't it to return home, so why did he have such a thing to return back to his world? She also added that she thought that he wanted to return home as soon as possible. But, after which the hero decided to reveal himself a little, and tell Luna that there is a person whom Jimmy with all his soul and his humanity does not love and is obliged to bring him down. But what I don't understand, Luna replied that there is hardly anyone stronger than the hero, that is Jimmy, even if it's all for the sake of revenge, then the hero should take care of his health, Luna answered. Jimmy knew that most likely from this world they do not know who the hero of silver armor is. Therefore, he decided to tell her in a nutshell that he is strong, so strong that he could destroy even his hero who mastered the spear in a week. Therefore, he remains here until now until he becomes stronger than himself, and he wants you by all standards of strength. The guy only wanted to become stronger than the monster who impoverished his family and made him writhe in pain. He said that he wanted to cut off all his limbs, so that he could feel the pain that he experienced from his family and everyone he impoverished, and also so that he could not move. And then I would leave him under the blazing sun, and I would cut a piece of flesh every day. As soon as the wounds began to heal, he would inflict new wounds on him. So Jimmy hated the armored hero with all his heart. Jimmy also added that this freak will live because he will feed them his meat, and thus he will live and die gradually until he pays for all his sins with his life. This is exactly what the hero of the spear wants. So that this is exactly the punishment for heroes in armor. The hero of the spear really longs for him to answer for all his sins and for everything that he did to hurt him 100 times more, and also for it to be as slow as possible. After these words, Luna immediately realized that the hero of the spear could be a bit of a balance to him too. I definitely need a psychiatrist. After they decided to go back to some adventures, a lot of time passed, and he was still able to defeat one of the most powerful monsters, the spear demon. After the demon was driven away by the spear hero, the demon was truly surprised that such a great hero could defeat him. He recognized him, and considered him especially strong compared to such heroes. The demon continued to live and say that he would be interested in what the next hero would be like, whether he could be as strong in 100 years, stronger than the current hero. Listen to all this, the hero thought that he needed training. So he took out a life potion that resurrects the one who almost received it, and he poured it on the demon so that he could get up and fight him again. After pouring the elixir of life on the demon, he was able to wake up. Luna was alarmed along with her squad of adventurers that he needed something effective. The elixir, did he really want to use it on a demon, which turned out to be a reality. After which the demon was able to recover in this short time, and he was very alarmed, and he knew that he wanted the hero to fall just like he himself. He knew it. Therefore, he asked the hero if he really wanted to fall as low as himself. He asked him if he wanted to become a spear demon. To which the heroes of the spear replied that let's start again to become stronger. The hero wanted to train more. To which the demon was surprised, because for him to train was the most terrible thing one could be. After all, the demon Moss expected everything, but expected that his name was in plain text, and a whipping mug for him it was too low. Therefore, each time the heroes trained and revived him several times. Over and over again he fell into poverty and resurrected, fell into poverty and resurrected. It was crazy. This happened so many times that even non-adventurers themselves lost count of how this was even possible. Whether it was possible to mock demons like that. Closer to the 100th attempt, he is a hero. having fallen short of the demon so often that the demon himself did not want to live next to him. So he asked him to finish him off and make sure that he would no longer be reborn. He was so tortured morally that he simply could not even stand up. Therefore, the hero carried out his decision and finished him off with his spear. By late afternoon it was all over, and all the adventurers were very tired and scared that he wanted to restore the river again, in order to torment him to the end. Luna decided to run up to the hero and stop him, saying that She stopped and told him that he was strong enough to destroy anyone. Even that same hero in armor. She had never seen such a strong hero before. So she asked him to stop. The hero didn't want to stop, but decided to listen to her. The moon was proving that she and her team, would help him take revenge and do everything possible to make the hero's dream come true. Therefore, she asked that the hero no longer cross the line. She only wanted him to remain human and not be like this very spear demon. After a while, they returned home, and immediately began to create new weapons from this demon spear for the guy who asked to make some unique enchanted weapon from the demon spear. All the blacksmiths of the world came to him and worked only for him, because he paid them a lot. But he also helped so that the quality was the best, so that somehow it almost could not break even in the most difficult battles. Because this is his success. That's why all the blacksmiths tried to make the best possible spear. I'll try to find the best possible way to create a spear from radiating material. Since then, these same spearmen have been sharpening this very spear of the devil which broke after the battle with the dragon. The moon specially stood next to them to make sure for herself that they were repairing it in the best quality. Because for her, it is important that the hero would not be in a difficult situation, and could always somehow defeat the enemy with the best spear. Despite how the blacksmiths work, she only wanted a hero. Even after avenging his fate, he did not become a monster and remained human. This is the way our hero has a spear. This is exactly how he became who he is. He became a hero who protects the ordinary inhabitants of his world. In fact, even though he is callous and evil, but in the darkness of his soul he is the same as he was before. He simply hides from everyone else so that he can be different, and so that it seems that he is evil, and also so that no one loves him, and then he does not love anyone in return. After all, in this way he will then suffer if this person dies because of his guilt due to the fact that he could not protect him. Also, his hallucinations despised him, because it seemed to him that this silver shield was mocking him, and only saying that he thought that someone would root for him. So his hallucination was devouring him from the inside with its mere appearance. The guy was not everyone's savior and not the protagonist in the story of a valiant hero. He was only one who wants revenge, and also to those who want to be together with the one who truly deserves it, even though the hallucination calls him a non-entity. But he himself knows who he is. He is the one who will stop exactly the person who truly deserves the hero's punishment. Jimmy didn't care how he would take revenge, but he would definitely do it. But he didn't understand that hallucinations appear in it only if he is weak or weakened by the type of sleep. But these hallucinations cannot appear so simply, so he decided to check whether it was true or not. Now his trident is completely hallucinatory, and it turned out that this is some kind of magic that simply watches him. This spell shows exactly that person or that creature whom you hate or fear the most. In the end, it will be enough for him to become a beggar who beggars a hero in silver armor. After some time, he decided to go back to the ship because Stephanie was waiting on it, as well as his crew, who most likely died. While the hero walked around him, the icy peaks only parted into the sea, and the dragon Leviathan only began to rot a little along with his mistress. He came a little closer to the ship. He decided to throw the staff in order to throw it onto the ship. Having thrown away his staff and the staff of the hero's lady, he was deprived of boarding the ship. Little by little, the hero began to climb onto the ship through the pipes. Stephanie poured onto the ship and saw how he climbed in and also decided to look at him with delight that he had single-handedly impoverished another of the heroes. Stephanie thought that he managed to defeat another hero who would be one of the most stylish dragons of the sea light. But she also had a mistress who ruled very seriously. She could come up with any strategies, but it turned out that she was defeated along with her dragon. She also realized again that he was truly capable of destroying all the heroes who surrounded all of Japan. While Stephanie was watching and admiring how the hero dealt with the dragon hero, the hero decided to ask her if there were any survivors, since everyone on the ship almost died after that fight, and only the ship itself, which was floating on the water, remained. The hero asked such a question, to which Stephanie only responded by saying that she denied the fact that there could be survivors on the ship. Even the very last survivor, which she held in her own hands, died. Stephanie told the hero that she examined the entire ship. She could not find anyone alive, since everyone in this battle could die very quickly, and the lady was able to pierce everyone with her trident. Stephanie was convinced that there were no survivors at all, and they were left completely alone on this ship. The hero knew that this would be the case. He did not expect that anyone except Steph would survive. Stephanie will figure out how they can be. After all, If there is no ship's crew, then they won't be able to move, and they won't be able to move from their place without them. They won't be able to cope with the huge ship. Stephanie suggested to the hero that among his many abilities, there might not be one that could transfer them to land. She thought since he was able to create a shield or continue the path to the hero of the sea dragon, just a jack of all trades, maybe you and there won't be an ability that will teleport us both. Zhenya was angry that she thought that the hero was some kind of wizard. And Jimmy also stated what he remembers, that someone promised that he would become his guide and shouldn't he know how to fly a ship. Stephanie decided to answer that she didn't mean that, and they said that she would be his guide. She couldn't do that. And Stephanie was also a little ashamed that she herself had succumbed to being a guide. But she didn't understand some kind of responsibility and what she should to be matter by any means they can think of. After these words, the hero only stated that he was not sure that Stephanie could do anything at all, besides how to get involved and save ordinary people who couldn't cope with this, and also to leave her on this ship so that she would think about her mistakes and maybe learn to control it. In general, Jimmy thought that she would be more useful, and so he took her with him so that she could, if anything, help him with some tests or anything else. But apparently he was mistaken, and perhaps it was all in vain. To which Stephanie got a little nervous and didn't want him to leave her, so she decided to say that if she was already going back, then what should she do? If Jamie is a hero, then let him take care of Stephanie first, or at least tell him where to swim back. We too roughly expected such an answer from a person who thinks only about himself, and doesn't even know what pain is and what he's going through, so he didn't answer her, and didn't answer anything. But then he remembered that after all, she had experienced such a thing. What more in life, perhaps she would never have gotten over it, so he decided to let her cool down a little. Having said that they both need to rest, so the next morning we will decide what and how, where to direct their path next. Jimmy said that maybe she wasn't tired, but he himself was specifically so tired. Therefore he needs to regain his strength after the battle. Therefore if Stephanie does not want to stay here, her duty is to stay. You can go at least in all 4 directions, but if you stay, then come up with at least the slightest plan. How get out of here? Jimmy, the heroes, and Stephanie were actually a very good couple who helped each other, and also knew each other, even if only a little. But they understood each other just as Stephanie understood Jimmy that he was suffering all this time. Jimmy understood Stephanie that it was not easy for her. He just needs a little help. So even though he said that he didn't need her, in fact he was lying to himself and he was proving himself wrong. I really didn't like the fact that he was pretending to be some kind of superhero. But still, she understood that she was really a little useless in battle. So she wanted to help the hero of the information, at least a little. Yes, she talked about what their weaknesses were, but this was not enough to prove to him that she was worthy of being his guide. Therefore she wants to prove that she also wants to be useful, and she will prove that she can figure out this ship and go on it wherever they want. Deep night had already come, which shone around one single ship that was in the middle of the ocean, and also shining throughout the entire district, and also on this very night. Stephanie decided to take her hands and go to the warehouse where there will be instructions on how to control the ship. Going to the warehouse, she was just looking for this instruction or something useful that could come in handy, but she only found in such rubbish as duct tape, rulers, sheets of paper, documents that were not particularly valued, and also a bunch of other things. Stefania didn't understand why there was so much in this ship, but only rubbish was stored. It's a ship. There should be at least some instructions, at least basic instructions on how to operate the ship, or at least how to operate the boats. But without giving up hope, she just thought that she could handle it. And even though it would take a long time, she could probably handle it overnight. And also, she worked so she could go to rest, but remembering the words of the hero, and it really hurt her. So she wants to prove to everyone, and especially to him, that she is not useless, and that she can help him whatever the cat wants. Although it may not even be possible, she can do it. She or what we are is about how to save the world together with the hero of the spear. Still, she searched for quite a long time. But even after several hours, she still couldn't find anything normal. So she tries harder to get the necessary information as soon as possible. Stephanie really wanted to find a manual for operating the ship, so she searched throughout the ship's archive to find it as quickly as possible. She would also show and prove to the hero that she is capable of much, and she will be useful to him in all the adventures that they will encounter. This archive was very, very damp, but Stephanie did not give up and searched throughout the archive to find at least something. But around there were only documents of all sorts of rubbish and nothing else besides it. She even thought a little that there was nothing else here except useless documents. And now, only with her flashlight in her mouth, she is searching around the entire perimeter, searching every shelf, every document, every brochure, in order to find at least something about ships. Although it was very strange to her that there were no detailed instructions on how to operate the huge ship. While she was looking for documents from the archives at the end of the corridor, there was some noise. This noise was very similar to the human experience. Perhaps this is some kind of vor who climbed onto their ship at night since the hero is sleeping. She was left completely alone, so she must go with him cope alone in order to also prove to the hero that she is not useless, or maybe they are rats, but I wanted to check. Nevertheless, she decided to dedicate a flashlight to this secret room. And she also saw that there was some kind of shadow coming from here. She thought that it could be a person. So we need to be careful somehow. Well, approach from behind, and maybe hit him if he attacks her. Since she is the only one, that means there is someone on the ship and the hero is sleeping. It means that some thief must have snuck in. It cannot be like some ordinary rustling of some kind of rat. This is too much noise for such a small creature. So Stephanie decided to check it out herself. She decided to pull out from the corner and see who might be there. But she didn't see anyone. But then suddenly she noticed that someone was passing by, and this was the hero who carried the crew somewhere away, somewhere on the street from the cabins. He took everyone out into the street to do something with him. But Stephanie couldn't even think what he was doing with them. She even thought for a second that he was eating them souls to restore their mana. Well, she thought that after all this was nonsense. It couldn't be, she thought so. But still she became interested in why he wasn't sleeping, and that, in his opinion, it was rest, and how he rested at all, since he was no longer busy running around with these crews. Meanwhile, the heroes decided to deliver them completely outside. He placed one of the tridents directly on the deck, after which he lightly left everyone in place, everyone in order. The crew, or rather their corpses, was actually quite creepy, but this was his usual ritual. There were as many as 12 of these crew members, but all of these 12 people died on the same ship at almost the same time. And it was really sad because no one deserves such a cruel end except those who give this end. That is, heroes to him. Really, there were all of them. All these people were heroes in their own way, but heroes because each of them sacrificed for someone, for the sake of the family, for the sake of the earth, for the sake of their lives, and also each of them knew what he was doing and still served to the end. Even if they only had a drop of hope that they will be able to win, and even at the cost of their lives, and not very valiantly fought together with the hero. And by this act, he really appreciates this crew. He covered them all with the blanket of their fleet and prayed to each of them that they would be blessed with happiness in paradise. Heroes have not seen such people for a long time who know what they are doing, but they still go towards their goal, and they also wanted to really feel the hero at any cost. And he really liked it, but he would like each of them to return to their family, or just live so that each of them finds their own happiness in life. But it turns out that none of them survives. Also periodically about this, he has now changed his father, who was also a sailor. What they really are. He no longer knows whether he himself is alive or already dead. Jimmy began to guess that perhaps he too died due to the fault of the heroes. And so because of all of them, everyone on this ship died, and the heroes and his family also died because of the heroes. I closed the last person from the crew. He noticed that it was the same person, who did not believe in him and despised him. He finds this man at first did not believe him. Later he saved his life. He saved the life of Jimmy, who was standing with a shield, but he was able to stop the blow on his own. The guy understood that even though he didn't initially trust him, he made the biggest contribution in this. He protected himself. After all, if it weren't for him as a hero, Jimmy might have died, and that would have been the end of it, because who knows what could have happened if it weren't for him. While he looked at him, he cried bitterly. He cried because he couldn't send them to their loved ones, and because he couldn't do anything else. He could only ask for forgiveness, and see them all off on their final journey as sailors do. He again asked for forgiveness because this pain is really terrible for him. I really regretted that I couldn't protect them all, although I wanted it that way. He was too self-confident that he could do it with anyone. Since he had gone through all the most brutal training in his world, he couldn't expect anything else, and he couldn't expect that a hero could be so strong too. Jimmy underestimated the enemy, and because of this he paid. He paid by sacrificing 11 crews and 1 captain. The guy really hoped that in the next life they would all be very lucky, and they wouldn't have to suffer like in this life, and most likely their fate would change. That's all he hoped for, but he was really sorry. The heroes only insisted that they would all end up in a world where they would not have to sacrifice themselves and suffer in the most terrible fears and torments of all these trials. While Jimmy was saying all this, Stephanie was watching, who didn't expect that Jamie could be like this. She didn't know that he was really so vulnerable. She thought that he was the rudest guy she had seen because he didn't give any feelings at all. But in fact, he is very sensitive to everyone and very kind. But she realized this only now after she had known him for quite a long time. Stephanie couldn't even imagine how cruel this topic is for him, and why he so wants to honor all these people. After all, if he is a hero who doesn't care about people, he only wants to destroy all the heroes, although thereby proving to people that he is good, and that he can to save the world. Maybe he's mistaken. that he doesn't care about people and feelings, but he just closed everything on his own from people so that they would no longer become attached to him. Maybe Jimmy wanted this. She looked at him for quite a while, when suddenly she also wanted to honor the heroes of the ship. Otherwise, read a prayer and think that everything will be fine with them in the next life, since she is definitely sure. Now, because there is a next life, after all, if a hero who was in Japan is reborn in another world, it is possible. Another world of rebirths actually exists. The hero and his companion Stephanie saw off the fallen soldiers on their last journey. Maybe at this moment I repeated myself many times, but I just wanted to make sure that they felt this feeling when someone actually valued the lives of someone who can protect the whole world. But perhaps from the announcer it's strange sounds. But still, I just wanted to prove to you so that you feel it all and value your lives. It seemed that fate was more blessed to these two, but perhaps it was so, but they could not expect much from their lives. They could not rely on luck and prove to themselves that they were capable of stopping anyone. But these two were unexpectedly awaited by new guests who flew straight to them for help. The helicopter was getting closer and closer to the ship. On this very helicopter, there was a special detachment of some of the best military men in the world, as well as one of the top generals who led them all to ensure that they could fly safely and without any problems, and also pick up these yours who are now on the ship. The man who was the pilot of this helicopter decided to report to the main one that they had found these two, and that they were just standing and looking at them. So he amazingly opened the door to see what they looked like and what condition they were in. Surprisingly, he saw that they were quite alive even after the fight with the hero. It was surprising in his opinion that the heroes and her servants were able to revolt, and the girl who served him faithfully. Well, at least they heard rumors they found them too. These were unusual military men. And this was the restoration government of the Republic of Korea, and the helicopter was one of those who led all this, therefore, a unit to combat heroes. So they began the operation in preparation for the operation to detain the hero of the restoration. But not everyone was very alert, and they warned that the head should also be on alert. And also the fact that they do not know how dangerous they are, and they are on their side. Perhaps they are not even on side of restoration, and the fight against crime for the heroes. It is possible that their goal is to seize the territories of other heroes, but they cannot be sure that they will be peaceful with ordinary people. But the head was very calm and focused on his goal, so he answered the radio of his base that they would be extremely careful and would not make any hasty conclusions in advance. Flying a little closer to Stephanie and Jimmy, they decided to attract their attention, as well as lure them closer, so that they would not find out or think that their helicopter was threatening them. So they decided to wait a little with an answer, seeing how they would react to their helicopter. Well, Stephanie chaotically only answered that it was a helicopter. The guy was a little concerned about their safety, as he asked Stephanie if she had tried to call someone on the radio. To which Stephanie replied that no, she didn't try to call anyone over the radio, and in her heart she doesn't know who they are and what they want from them. A little more, the helicopters flew right above them, to which they only reasoned about what could be done in this case, that on the other side of the helicopter they didn't know what to do. That Stephanie and Jimmy didn't know what to do with the helicopter and what they should do, and who could be there be. Perhaps these are ordinary military personnel who flew past. Or perhaps this is a spice operation that perhaps wants to capture his hero Jimmy, who may be a threat to them. So he could not hope for safety. They may not do anything with Stephanie, but the hero is unknown. Stephanie might have thought that they might be the whims of the other heroes, and they just want to use people to catch them both. To which Jimmy may have agreed since he does not know this world thoroughly. Perhaps some people work for the heroes, so it is unknown to know him for sure. He has only been here for 1 week. Stephanie also decided to ask Jimmy a question so that he would answer her whether the heroes are very strong so that many people will join them. To which the hero replied that then they would not relax and would always be on alert. The head of the military unit, seeing that the hero was not in the mood for peace negotiations, he decided not to go down and tell them who they are from the helicopter. And then they will decide whether he should join or not, so he took out his megaphone. He decides to tell them a certain speech about who they are and what they want from the hero and his girlfriend. First, he checked whether this thing worked, and then he decided to tell them that they did not want to threaten them in any way, and they also decided to introduce themselves to what the head of the unit for fighting the hero of the organization of the restoration government of the Republic of Korea was saying to them, and they also wanted to let them down ladder to discuss everything with them on the helicopter. So he asked them to be kind and climb up to them on the helicopter so that they could discuss certain issues with them, after which he lowered the ladder for them. And the helicopter also just decided to go down a little lower so that they could climb up. Jimmy and Stephanie saw how the helicopter lowered the helicopter up the stairs, but they were still a little afraid to go up to them. After all, they didn't know what to expect. And also the guy thought that the restoration government sounds quite interesting and maybe they can help them. so he still decided to take the risk of going there and talking with them. And Andriusha, just in case, asked Stephanie if she had heard about such an organization. But Stephanie replied that she had not personally met with them, but she heard something when she was in Jeju territory. Stephanie decided to tell in a nutshell what they say, that this organization was created by the survivors of politics and the military opposing the heroes who took possession of the lands and ruled cruelly over the people. Stephanie also stated that she also heard that they are waging a guerrilla war against the heroes. That is, perhaps they have equipment, and they have every chance to stand against the heroes, which means Stephanie and Jimmy will need them anyway, since they are on the path to revenge. The guy decided to ask Stephanie, if this is so, then it is not surprising that they decided to turn to them for help, since he is considered almost the strongest hero who could even defeat the heroes according to the legend that was invented quite recently. Brought that we need to agree, and we should listen to them. Naturally, this helicopter, and think about what they are discussing and what they want. Well, Stephanie just looked at the helicopter again, a little nervous. She thought that this would be the right answer, and she still hasn't found how to go to this ship is going somewhere, so this will be the only possible chance to get out of here onto land. After walking for a couple more minutes, Stephanie and Jimmy began to climb the stairs to the helicopter, afraid of blurting out something wrong, and also the fact that perhaps it could be a very simple trap to lure them in, and then go quietly because these could really be the heroes who will lure. They will be killed so that there will be no more problems from them. But Stephanie and Jim didn't have much of a choice, so they still went there. And then Stephanie had already climbed up to the helicopter, and one of the military men gave her his hand so that she could get up. Then the guy got up. Well, they looked around and it was quite spacious, despite the fact that it was an ordinary helicopter, and they were a little uneasy knowing that if they fell, they could possibly crash. Well, I'm not sure about the hero, but about Stephanie 100%. And they also doubted that someone would definitely listen to them after the conversation. While the guy and the girl were looking at everything here and looking at the military in surprise, one of the leaders had already told them to sit down and position themselves as they wanted. The main thing was that they were comfortable and that they could hear him. While he was saying this, the military only looked at them a little in surprise. After all, they had never seen a real hero. And if they had, they would have been dead. And they also felt a little uneasy, even holding a weapon in their hands, because what can these weapons do against a hero? The guy and the girl took their places, and the other military man had already begun to close it because it was blowing very strongly right there. And they began to go to the nearest base of confrontation against the heroes. To confirm that the heroes and the girl were in place, the leader said that everything was fine without any complaints, and they were flying to their base, after which the pilot confirmed, and they began to depart. The pilot listened to the leader and decided to set off. They also told him on the radio some rules about what would happen if he angered the hero and what to do. In such situations, well, just in case, he had to be warned. But these are just precautionary measures, and they didn't want to do anything to the hero and the girl. How they were quite serious about this, because they understood that they needed military power to at least take over some territory of Japan. The helicopter began to depart far from this ship. And by the way, the ship probably wouldn't even have gone because its engine was broken, and there would be nothing to fix it. So the helicopter that flew to them was very useful. While flying in a helicopter, the military stood very close to Stephanie and Jimmy. But Stephanie showed with her sad and slightly terrible face everything that was happening, because she didn't really like the fact that there were military around her who could shoot her and the hero at any second. While Stephanie was sitting, she was lying at home about the fact that it was from a man in an official suit and military full armor that he was very suspicious, and she would not trust him. And she also thought about how they could quickly leave as soon as they get to some island, or rather to the island of Japan, in order to find one of the other heroes as quickly as possible and free innocent people. But Stephanie once again realized that it looks like this really is a restorative government, which means you don't have to worry. You can trust them, at least until they point a gun at them. While Stephanie was thinking about this, I decided to ask a certain question. Where are they going? To which the head was a little surprised, because not everyone would speak so directly to the forehead, but he liked what they were doing right away and decided to move on to these guys they needed. There is only one amendment. The government asks the questions, and the hero, in turn, together with his girlfriend, answers them. Therefore, in these rules, he asked them to answer their questions, even if it is possible personal, and any information will be useful for the battle with the heroes. While the leader of the Federation was saying this, he decided to take a cigarette and light it with his signature iron lighter, after which he looked at them, and thought about what they thought, and why they have such a surprised face when they see him talking. But the leader was only thinking about how they could help the government. And yet perhaps, but they won't be able to earn a few more heroes of those, thereby proving that they were truly useful to society. but he also gave a sign that they would do what was originally intended. The actual action was that one of the military men took out a rope and handcuffs, to which Stephanie was quite shocked by this approach, and it was too much for her, and she asked what they were doing. One of the other standing military men also took out handcuffs and a rope to tie them up, but Stephanie decided to prove to them that he is a hero. He has impoverished the other two heroes, and he is on the side of justice, and that he is on the side of the petitioning authorities. Therefore, she asked them not to do this because they do not understand anything, or the fact that he didn't do anything bad. He did only good. Also, the military did not listen and still continued with their body. Like Stephanie, he said a little more that there is no need to use force, because it happened without humanity, to calm down and just talk heart to heart, and so that everything would be fine without using force. But after Stephanie decided to stand up abruptly, the military took it because of the threat, so they pointed a gun at Stephanie and the hero. After which Clava decided to say that they should not move, because 1 second would be enough for the bullet to cut through Stephanie's skull and the hero at the same time. He deprived them of explaining briefly and clearly that there is no one. They are only the hero and Stephanie. So he asked them not to resist and put on handcuffs in good faith to guarantee the safety of all the military personnel who are surrounded here in this helicopter, as well as the law enforcement agencies, to whom they are flying now. They also decided to clarify that they do not have any information about Stella and Jimmy are heroes, so they need to be handcuffed, and also that on what grounds can they trust both of them. Because an ordinary legend does not prove anything other than just a legend, they also demanded proof and facts on what basis they can trust the two. They should not be mistaken because they are not some important person whom they simply accompany. The guy decided to stop the little threat by inserting his 5 kopecks, because he was starting to anger him a little. So he suggested it to him, and decided to tell him how long it would take him to blow off the heads of everyone around here with a soldier and capture a helicopter here. He also decided to add that how could you even think that bullets would somehow harm a hero who can destroy almost everything and kill anyone? Bullets are the least damage for a hero. The fact that Stephanie looked at the hero and realized that if they couldn't harm the hero, then Stephanie could be harmed and she wouldn't survive being hit by bullets, so she very much begged for the first one to be shot at. Then these are the heroes, since he doesn't get any damage at all. Only then her. After which the head decided to show her his trump cards after all, and taking his shirt, he decided to immediately pull it out and show them in exactly what they had originally thought. The leader decided to ask the hero, "What about a bomb that will be 1,000 times stronger than a hit from any high-caliber bullet will not be enough? Even if you can beat me, if his heart stops, then that's all this whole helicopter and everything else is watching on the air, therefore that so there will be a big kaboom." Well, Stephanie reacted only with a small but significant sigh and surprise, since she didn't expect that they would have a kamikaze, and the hero had no choice but to accept this fact that he couldn't destroy him so easily. Maybe he himself wouldn't suffer, but Stephanie would definitely die. The leader also added once again that if it exploded in a closed space, he decided to ask again if the hero was sure that he would not be harmed. Now the military helicopter is about 600 m above the ground, and he asked if he wanted to risk the fact that he would kill everyone, and this helicopter would crash from such a height. And perhaps if, again, he survived, then his companion, or rather the guide, would not survive. So the leader asked again, does he want it? And even if you survive, will you be able to swim to land? This was also a rather interesting question for the hero. At that moment, Jimmy felt helpless. So helpless that he was literally very angry at his tactics, since in principle it could have worked first with an explosion, then a helicopter crash, and then also getting to land, which who knows in what direction and how long before her to swim. Stephanie decided to still offer the guy to cool down a little and have to be patient a little since they don't have any other option. And even if there is, then please leave Stephanie alive. In principle, the hero had no other option. Stephanie decided to whisper to the guy that they had thought through everything carefully. So even if they succeed, perhaps they still have a backup plan. So it's better not to argue, but just get to land and they'll figure it out there. The leader decided to tell Stephanie that she looks a lot like his sister. So he says out of pure intentions that the best thing to do is not say anything and do what they tell them. It will be better for both parties, and they simply have no choice. Also looking at the guy, he also added that they don't need to show their character. It won't help them. And why did the troops freeze? Let's continue to tie up, said the leader. They were already approaching one of the old cities that was once inhabited by a large number of people. But now there are only fragments of fragile houses, broken cars. They are also abandoned, and there is almost no electricity, and not a single person around. The helicopter was already in this very city, and the base was somewhere close to all these ruins and destroyed estates, and it was generally strange. Flying around, Stephanie and Jimmy decided to look out the window and saw only in the distance a bunch of ruins of buildings, as well as buildings that had not yet fallen onto the road, but were all scratched, broken windows, vines that were everywhere, ruins of roads, abandoned cars, and the same picture of not a single person empty huge city. But in this city it wasn't so bad if there are few people here. It means few people can shine, and this is an ideal place to hide and create a military base, or rather a division of the right authorities against heroes under the protection of ordinary citizens. When they arrived at the place, the doors immediately began to open and all the passengers disembarked outside. The leader came out first and looked around that the same ruins had not changed. Nothing had changed. She even had some kind of calmness. After all, if there were even more ruins, it would mean that the hero was somewhere nearby, and they could possibly have been declassified ahead of time. But fortunately, everything was as it was originally. The military began to lead Stephanie out in handcuffs and with her hands tied, and in general with knitted clothes, and the hero was already following her. Stephanie even began to wonder a little whether this crazy guy always carries C4 with him, or just in this case, maybe he also sleeps with it. The leader decided to tell something to the so-called hero of the uprising, who calls him Jimmy, tied hand and foot, but he also spoke not to himself, but to a bunch of his military who were waiting for their arrival at the base. There is a crazy person, but only one who wants to protect all the remaining people in Japan and help the whole world. They arrived at the headquarters of the Restoration of the Government of the Republic of Korea. One of the new military men decided to tell the leader that he should accept his congratulations about the fact that they were able to catch one of the heroes of restoration, and prove that he really was able to bring a hero who had impoverished his own kind. Well, what do they say? He answered that the most important thing is yet to come, so he ordered the military to take them to the interrogation room, and he would soon come and personally interrogate them too. While they were connected with our eyes and almost everyone else, they were walking to headquarters. The leader decided to stand on the roof for a while and think. The leader was only thinking as he lit his cigar about whether this guy would become their advantage, or whether it was just a trick of the hero of the sword. He couldn't understand it. Although it's clear that it's not because if they just reminded him of that, or asked him who he was the hero's sword, and whether he knows him personally, perhaps they would have guessed that this is definitely not a servant of the hero sword. The whole world will soon know who the restoration hero is and whether he can defeat that same sword hero. Meanwhile, there was some kind of quadcopter that was flying around this headquarters and looked like military special equipment. But in fact, there was some other person behind it. This drone could analyze the terrain, show where it could be, also record voice, and think about how to analyze buildings. All these quadcopters were controlled by only one person, or not a person. And there were very, very many such quadcopters throughout the city, and finally that same defective person, the headquarters of the organization to fight heroes. This same man turned out to be one of the sword heroes, and he also found them. He was very angry that people acted like damn rats and they couldn't stand up for themselves as heroes, so he hated them. The heroes and Stephanie were taken to prison or to a secret base where there was a lot of video surveillance over them, and also a bunch of guards. This was one of the most secure Japanese headquarters that existed at the moment. Perhaps not the most, but perhaps the only headquarters that could exist here. And the hero from Stephanie was taken to this very headquarters. They walked along with the military who held guns in their hands. They, Stephanie and Jimmy, were tied up and they only obediently went where they were shown. Even if the hero didn't see anything, it doesn't mean that he didn't feel anything, so he could fight even blindly. Even he had this. So he could easily understand that the handcuffs were the weakest there could be. Even in the world of heroes, the weakest handcuffs would be much more stable than these metal bracelets. It would be easy to break them just a little while going to class. But since they are connected, and he does not want to create problems for humanity, he did not do this. Also, given the strength of his body, it will take him 1 second to free himself from these handcuffs. But he only listened to the guards and what they were saying, and also to Stephanie who was following him. He was also easily able to determine by the sounds around him, and he realized that apparently there were 4 or 5 soldiers standing around him who were accompanying him along with Stephanie. If Islam handcuffs 1 second, then plus 3 seconds to deal with all the guards at once. Well, in principle, this is even a very good option, the hero thought. The guy began to be suddenly infuriated by everything, since from the very helicopter they obey the orders of these ordinary people. Of course, they are harmless to him, but still they bother him. Therefore, he thinks he can run away right now, because this is a great opportunity to collect Stephanie and get away from here and find new ones heroes. Therefore, the hero decided to act and stood on the spot to attract the attention of the guards and to try with them properly. What they, of course, paid attention to otherwise before him was that what he was standing for, and the fact that he stood up like a pillar. So they abruptly began to order him to start moving again, and walked with them to the very end. After which they lost their temper and he decided to tell them the truth. That he followed them not out of fear, but only in order to get to land, so scaring him with some kind of weapon would not be very scary for him. After which the military were also irritated, and were not very happy to see the hero. After all, this is this man, or is no longer a man who has impoverished many people. Well, at least they thought so, so they not very politely asked to follow him, and also let him in his interrogation room will open his mouth. Talking to them a little to the point of emotion, they almost want to shoot him right in the head to end it all. Although they can do it in vain, they still can. One of the military men looked at Jimmy very irritated, and wanted to shoot him right in the head with this very bullet. But his conscience and pride did not allow him. After all, if he shoots, then they will not have funny evidence to prove and tell the head. But they really want to do it. After these words, the guy could be very easily pissed off, and not for a second he began to break these shackles, in order to properly deal with these two just films that can only speak with their weapons. But Stephanie heard how indignant he was, and how the hero wanted to tear them apart. She already felt it in her gut. Therefore, she asked him not to be angry, and she also explained their non-behavior by the fact that they were simply afraid of him, so they wanted to quickly take him to interrogation room. Therefore, Jimmy turned his attention to Stephanie. She decided to add that they seemed to have no evil intentions, but the hero took it at face value, since perhaps it was so. Stephanie decided to further prove that they are participants in the Restoration government. These people experience the same unpleasant memories and the same hatred as heroes as Stephanie and Jimmy. Stephanie explained that they all have a common enemy, so they shouldn't put too much pressure on them. They had to convince them to help them, so she asks Jimmy to remain calm until the very end. The guy listened to the girl and simply did not resist and dropped his hands. Well, the military man looked a little surprised at the hero's reaction, but was only surprised and continued what he started. They began to walk further along the corridor. Only the heroes were taken there, and Stephanie was left in the interrogation room. While Stephanie stood still, she heard them all drinking their hearts, which were very worried about the fact that next to them were the heroes themselves, who at any second could kill them all at once. Opening the door, Stephanie went, and in this very room there was only a table and 2 chairs and a kerosene lamp. The place was quite calm except for 2 military men who stood near Stephanie. They put her in her place, and they held her by the shoulders, waiting for the main thing so that she wouldn't run away. Although Stella didn't even think about running away. At that very moment the same boss came in, and that chair was his. The one who came closer to this table looked at Stephanie and then untied her eyes. And after that they began a dialogue. He spoke with the goal that he knows that she is not a hero, and that she is an ordinary person like all of them. He decided to ask Stephanie and offer her what he wants to hear from her lips. Everything and all the information about him, that she knows what a recovery hero really is and what he wants in general. And he was also interested to know why she helps him. Maybe it's some kind of curse, or she's lying to his tune. Maybe he threatens her about this. It's very interesting. That's why he asked such a question. Stephanie decided to ask that the hero of the uprising had rather pretentious nicknames. It couldn't be called anything simpler. And she also stated that she would not call him a hero. He is very different from the previous heroes that they might have been destined to meet. It was very interestingly different in his head. And why was it too interesting for him, since he had never heard anything like this from other people? I haven't seen Thai heroes often who would voluntarily give up like him. The girl began to continue by saying that it seemed that he harbored incredible anger towards the hero of the sword, and he also said that he was going to impoverish other heroes from what she knew he had no other goal. Stephanie also told what he said as if he was going to leave their world as soon as he dealt with someone Mensu. More precisely, with the hero of the sword, most likely. I say it was quite interesting to hear this. If she is not lying, and all this is true, then the situation generally converges, and it turns out that the reason why the hero of the uprising is only now is that, as for before this, he was in a parallel world, and therefore he came only now, and it became known about him from legends only not long ago. This all explains why the heroes of the rebellion headed north and left other heroes impoverished. The leader decided to ask if it means that retribution and anger are guiding him correctly, to which Stephanie only nodded and confirmed this later. He continued that if he lets go of these moments, his goal converges with their goal, that they also want to bring down the hero of the sword. While the leader was speaking, he began to puff a little more, so Stephanie even coughed a little from all the smoke in this room. The leader also continued that it would be good if we assume that if his goal is to destroy the rest of the heroes. But if this is so, is it possible that the hero can be lured away, him to his side? And also then he wanted to hear for what reason she is helping him, and why Jimmy keeps Stephanie with him. Stephanie coughed and answered that she said that she would follow him, and that's why he became attached to Stephanie and Stephanie to him, and it also seemed to her that he would need a guide. In addition, she confirmed that she is a person who, just like him, lost family members, and she would like to help him in taking revenge since she no longer has family members. It was all because of the sword hero, so she wants too to take revenge on him. Just like he himself, they both have a common goal to take revenge on the hero of the sword for all the atrocities that he committed. Although all this time she looked more like a burden, the leader still decided to confirm that it seemed like the truth to him, That's why he believed her. After which she sharply looked at him with joy on her face and answered, "Yes, it's true. You believe me and him." She only insisted that she knew that the Restoration government was created with the aim of making heroes. Stephanie was so happy, and she just sighed with a deep breath, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from her shoulders, and said that thank God now, with the help of the military and the Restoration government, it is possible. Very soon, they will be able to crush the heroes and return the world to normal. To which the leader decided to exclaim that the girl, what she says, is so articulate but completely inappropriate in assessing the situation. She does not understand that they do not plan to let go of the recovery hero. Moreover, they are not going to help the spear hero. Yes, even until he shows them that, unlike other heroes, he can be restrained, they still won't let him out. But Stephanie was a little worried that he was saying such things. How can they escape from here now? The leader also decided to ask one very skillful question, whether she trusts him. If the girl trusts him, you know anything about him? Asks Stephanie. Does she know anything that is now on the mind of this spear hero? Is he strong enough to crush the sword hero? These few questions from the leader literally bombed his head from the fact that if he does not hear the answer that he thinks, then he will have to do extreme measures, and he doesn't even know what can be done with them in such a situation if the answer is negative. Stephanie looked at the leader with a terrible, unpleasant feeling in her body, and he also decided to add whether she could guarantee that he would not betray humanity, that he would not betray the organization and headquarters. And he wanted to create something else. Is it possible to find out who he will become after he kills the sword hero? Stephanie only thought that the truth would be if after his revenge was accomplished, what would happen then? The leader decided to ask a couple more questions, and one of them was still quite unusual, as she told the hero of the uprising that it could indeed be hope for the survivors. But there have already even been rumors that a hero will appear who will impoverish his own kind. Therefore, the leader stated that, again by trusting and helping him, they are all taking an extremely big risk, and that they are not in a position to take risks, just because of the newly emerged hope for humanity. That is why it would be more logical to take him down now while they are able to restrain him. After all, if they don't have a chance, then no one will help them. Or the alternative option is to place him in custody so that he is like a pet sitting in one place, waiting for his command. Stephanie accepted this as a heartless rule, so she decided to return it, and she also asked him to restrain himself if they really did this. He would be furious, and then everything here would fly into a deep hole. A few days later, the hero sits in the same room, waiting for someone to come and do as he wants to act according to Stephanie's plan, without scaring anyone and listening carefully to everyone so as not to do anything wrong. As he sat here, he remembered Stephanie's words. He recalled the words that he just needed to remain calm because Stephanie asked him to, and also she thinks that they are just scared and are just afraid of Jimmy. Their plan was that they should simply convince them to help them, so she asks him to remain calm, which he still does. While he remained calm, he only thought that it was somehow difficult for him to understand their fear. It was somehow incomprehensible to his understanding. Also, the hero here just sits in one place for 3 days in a row and doesn't even eat anything. Therefore, then I thought that they and Jimmy were so afraid that they decided to kill themselves there because they were afraid to even come here. Although Jimmy thought and realized that his body was no longer the same as before and could go without food for whole weeks. He realized that he would definitely not die, but rather, he would die of boredom while waiting for someone, that someone would come for him. But then he heard some steps, not even steps, but something else. He heard the sounds of gunshots, and this might not be alarming, so he decided to properly prepare for an unexpected surprise. All of himself at the table, the door opened behind which someone was standing, but he decided to quickly fix it all. Under his own hand, pretending that he was without weapons and could not move anything at all. Although he had already broken his shackles for a second, he also decided to pull off his mask to get a good look at the enemy, since he doesn't know what to expect. But, luckily for Jimmy, Stephanie came with some Captain America, in fact. She came with some blonde guy who looked quite in shape, so Jimmy wasn't the only one wondering who it was. Was it help or a replacement? This stranger decided to turn to the hero. He decided to ask that he was the hero that everyone heard. Looking at him, I realized that this guy was clearly healthy and clearly strong. He needed them, so he didn't answer anything. He was just surprised that someone was talking about him. Did Stephanie really blabbed everything? The stranger Captain America decided to introduce himself that he was the hero of the Iron Fist, and he had come to save him. After these words, he decided and realized that it looks like Stephanie is a traitor, since she decided to take the step to ask for help from another hero who, most likely, has also spent many lives in poverty. And perhaps this is not Stephanie at all, but only a shell of her, and the real Stephanie may now be in prison. The hero began to look intently at Stephanie and doesn't trust her, and now he doesn't know for a single millisecond whether she's real or not. And even if she's real, then why the hell did she turn to a hero who destroys all living people on this planet? But what Stephanie only thought that the Restoration governments were not going to ally with them from the very beginning, and so she decided to turn to the hero for help to save Jimmy. until she realized that the hero thought that she had betrayed. She only told him that they all wanted to destroy them, and so she then contacted the hero who appeared in front of her out of nowhere. This same hero with a steel hand decided to help her free Jimmy. Captain America decided to put his nose into these matters, and decided, so to speak, to make friends with the hero of the spear. Namely, this government should not have been trusted from the very beginning, and the fact that they were not going to help from the very beginning, to which the hero Jimmy so knew that this was a setup, because he just wanted to get to land to find other heroes and kill them all. While Stephanie was trying to untie Jimmy, he only thought about looking into Stephanie's eyes for just a moment to look and make sure that she was not a clone. And he was also angry that she turned to a hero who could easily destroy her and nothing. In this case, the hero would not even know, or it would be even worse to hold her hostage so that the hero would be in an even worse situation than he was now. While Stephanie was untying them, Captain America once again proved that they only wanted to get rid of them as another threat, so they were of little use in fact, but Stephanie almost managed it. And she also miscalculated quite a bit about the government. She blessed God for the fact that the hero of the steel hand managed to save her. Stephanie cut almost all the threads, but the hero had enough of this strength even though he had not eaten for 3 days. And now he was a little exhausted, but in principle he felt fine. He was able to get out of these ropes thanks to Stephanie, who scratched these ropes a little. They are, if anything, sea marine ropes are considered one of the strongest knots, and they are not so easy to get out of for an ordinary person. After which the hero untied these ropes and they just fell to the ground, and Stephanie was a little surprised at how quickly it all happened, and the fact that he was able to cope almost without being in other positions. He was simply able to mentally untie them. The heroes of the spear saw so much Stephanie had words, so he didn't click her as a hero, because if she had no problem cutting off his ropes without any NATO effort, then it would only mean that she was a hero, but since she could barely open them, it means that she is not a hero. But the fact that they are facing this is a big threat for both of them, because it still remains a hero who will kill them and then others. Therefore, he needed to stop him as quickly as possible. Therefore, in an instant, as soon as his hand was free, he pointed it to summon his spear so that it would fly straight to him, and then he had enough of a lot of betrayal from his successor, and also enough of chatter with a hero who had killed quite a lot of people. So he only agreed that he had had enough of this Brad, and he now wants to impoverish him. The hero of this imposter who only thinks that he is cool, only because he was able to save and untie him, and also without proving anything to the factors that he possibly could have killed those very people for no reason. And also Stephanie decided to tell Jimmy to stop immediately. This is a disgrace because he saved Stephanie and Jimmy. She also asked that he doesn't want to fight with him. It's crazy to fight with him. What's the point of it? Because he saved both of them. What made Jimmy even more angry was that she was also following his bait. She was like a fish caught in a net. But Stephanie was only proving that he really saved her and him. Why is he evil? These words especially affected the hero of the spear, because he decided to remind her that her feelings for Messi to the heroes were just so pathetic that she could trust any hero simply because he behaved well. And where is Tanya's hatred that she felt for the heroes who killed her family from? For all of them. Where is she? Where did she go? The guy said that he did not give her any doubt that they both had the same goal. He trusted her. He said this from the bottom of his heart, because he thought that besides her, he had no one to trust. He warned that all heroes are cruel villains, and they only pretend to be good in order to rub themselves into trust, and then, as soon as possible, commit the end of the very partner who will become a friend for them. But he is not like that, because he knows what the heroes did. He only wants to take revenge on all the heroes. That's why he became an anti-hero. While the hero was saying this Captain America decided to ask them that a similar misunderstanding happened. Not all heroes are as bad as he thinks, and they were simply unlucky to be born in this era. Why was he even more angry with them, and he decided to lay an iron fist on this hero so that he would close his barefoot mouth and not open it in front of him anymore? He also asked him to be kind, so that whether it was not understanding or a mistake, he didn't care deeply to this treason is treason. The guy was proving that they had both crossed a line that could not be crossed, because they knew very well that everyone who abandoned humanity would die sooner or later. Then he picked up Stephanie and threw her to the ground, after which Stephanie, a little beaten by him, fell to the ground and literally groaned in pain. Having completely lost trust in Stephanie, he just wanted to advise her that before she gets into even more trouble, the best thing for her would be to just get the hell out of here. Stephanie morally hurt her very much because such words from the hero when they went through so much together. He just took and asked her to be left to her fate and for her to go to hell so that she would no longer come across his eyes. She just couldn't leave it like that, and that's why she decided to express to him something that didn't come to him. Why does she have to make excuses? and she doesn't understand that even if he's going to just end everything. Asking that as soon as he deals with the hero of the sword, what will happen next? How? What will he do? While Stephanie was answering and talking to the hero heard some incomprehensible sound, as if someone was approaching them from the back of the hero Captain America. Or rather an iron fist. Who could it be? Is it really this? And then that same leader came down with several military men into this room. This leader with his military just looked at them all again, and he realized that the test had been passed for what they wanted. After all, if they had trusted the hero who pretended to be only a hero, they would have immediately ruined him. So they praised him for what did not trust any other hero, and only went to the end so that he would scatter with all the other heroes. They guarantee that because he is right and will not join them for anything. After this event, 3 days passed, and the leader was already proving that this is why it would be more logical to arrest him now while they are able to restrain him, or they need to place him in custody. This is what he said quite a long time ago. Then they thought about themselves in order to test the hero that they would be honest, and that they would have guarantees so that they could trust the hero and understand that he would not betray them, and Stephanie also decided to add that she also asked him to restrain himself, and even if they really do, he will be scattered. The leader said that did she really think that they would all immediately rush to help him? If he had to offer to kill the rest of the heroes, what would he say to that? Well, Stephanie replied that maybe his plan seems brilliant to him, but in her opinion, in the adult world, everything works completely differently. While they were discussing all this, Stephanie only realized that the situation was getting out of control, and it was becoming more and more confusing, so she needed to get out of it all as quickly as possible. The leader, but be that as it may, they just have bad thoughts about him and also think that this game is worth the candle. How about a small adventure suggested by the leader Stephanie? After all, the hero is the restoration of poverty, not one but two heroes. And therefore there is a small problem. The old men occupy high positions, they will prefer security rather than the fight for freedom. Therefore they had to come up with something that would force the hero to change his thinking, and also bring him, so to speak, to check what would happen to him. The leader didn't just look at the wall, but he looked through the transparent glass that he heard and saw them with all his ears. And he noticed for a reason that the old farts might not even allow him to do this. After all, each of them is just something we can come up with so that they themselves do not suffer, and so that they have guarantees that the hero can be on their side and no other hero can lure them to their side. One of the employees of this headquarters decided to invite everyone to watch them, and the fact that they already knew that Captain Chekway's methods were a little unconventional, so they suggested waiting a little. The leader or Captain Chekhov thought together with Stephanie that something could be invented so that all the old farts, including himself, could trust the hero so that he would not be tied up in case of anything, as well as himself so that Stephanie would also be involved in this in order to take him alive. And then he came up with something that was possible. There was one way to test it, and he suggested that Stephanie put on a small performance that would help them investigate that the subject was a hero, to which Stephanie was surprised and did not understand what he was talking about at first. This is exactly how they were able to create this performance and then adjust it. So this is supposedly some kind of hero who dreamed about the man Stephanie, and they just made sure that the hero was still able to pass the test. And even though he helped Stephanie, he wanted to kill him. It was a good result for their little performance, and it was a good experiment. After which the hero just looked at her and realized that it was not of her own free will that she decided to trust the hero, but only because she was ordered to perform a performance in front of him. So he looked at her with a glance. He was a little sorry for what he said to her. Meanwhile, she decided to continue what she started, and in general, all this is pure window dressing which only showed, and was proof that he did not betray the entire government, and he was able to pass this test. So well done. She said what she had to prove so that the government could entrust him with the end of heroes, and she herself suffered from him. The head also said that they hired an actor to make him look more like the hero of the steel hand. You can let go of your spear, he's not dangerous, he's not a hero at all, just an actor. The hero decided to ask something that was already obvious, but still, what if he showed friendliness to this type? Well, the leader answered with a pretty good smile on his face that the hero of the spear would have died on the spot. After all, they had a backup plan if something happened, namely to blow it up completely with the help of several dozen C4. And even if he had come out after the explosion of the bombs that he was under the table, it is unlikely that he would have survived against a bunch of people who were ready to attack at any moment in the event of an explosion. And when he says a bunch, he literally means that he would be met by a bunch of fighters of the Restoration government. And also the heroes realized that something was wrong, that their floor was too light and light on which they were now standing, and it was not in vain that such guesses were made. After all, if something happened, and if something went wrong in order to have enough time to evacuate people, they would simply fall through the floor, under which there is also a pile of C4, and they were going to bury them alive, detonated bombs under the floor and blowing them all up. This would be the most win-win option since they could protect the citizens and the restorative government. And only a small number of soldiers were sacrificed who were ready to say goodbye to their lives in order to save the hero. After these words, the hero Jimmy only realized that their feeling of enmity is so strong that they don't even care about sacrificing everything in their own lives for the sake of victory. That's what's important to them. It even scared him a little. After all, everyone who thinks like that, they're all obviously crazy. But these crazy people can trust because they will never disappear, and also will not betray them all. The heroes decided to say that he was sick of his circus, but he is sure that they have a common enemy, and he is 100% convinced of this. Well, the leader confirmed that just like they were confirmed in that, and they have guarantees that the hero will not give them restoration. Therefore, they have mutual understanding, and this is important for both of them, and since he showed his hatred to the heroes, he will show him incredible comprehensive support. After which they all said so and began to slowly go down the elevator. They all went down to floor B12 together where they wanted to check something. This same B12 was an unusual place, because on this floor was where all the people came and lived there. After all, it was the largest settlement underground. It was a mini-city that was located under the ruins of an ordinary city. This city was strong with a bunch of people who found happiness again. They lived there and will live until outside the earth. The hero disappeared from there, and before that, they will all live here on floor B12. It was so deep and even incredibly large, the fact that they were able to place an entire city underground. When there were no such dispelled technologies, they developed very quickly with all this. A technology, and also this city completely shone with lanterns, and was equipped with everything that people needed. Stephanie was surprised because wow, such a huge city was hidden underground. It was just great, she thought. And also it turns out that the rumors that Tech 1B is located in the basement of the Parliament building are also true. She decided to ask the head also. All these states, this city was impoverished by the same hero of the sword, who took possession of this place, and handed over this place to his managing hero. The leader said that he was activated immediately after the appearance of Kim Myung-soo, the same hero of the sword. But later he was destroyed along with the city, to which she was quite shocked by what she heard. But in fact the head decided to lie, and he also realized how naive she was. He certainly would not have wanted to lie to them, but for the sake of safety, he lied to her. Since the level of knowledgeable heroes is very high, they try not to talk left and right about the underground city. And initially this place was a bomb shelter that we built during the Cold War. That is, they modernized it and built that city. That's exactly how this empty place turned out to be a wonderful place to live all Japanese citizens. The heroes also listened attentively to the leader because he had quite interesting information about this place, because he didn't even realize that people could be hiding underground. It was quite interesting for him. And the leader began to continue that they are considered small since they live in this city, 50,000 people. And even here, rumors have already appeared about a hero of restoration who will defeat everyone for the heroes, and people believe in it and say that the one who crushes all the evil heroes has appeared. Therefore, all the people who found out about him, or rather the whole point, they all decided to approach the elevator from the top to greet this very hero who protects them, and will continue to protect all the people who inhabit Japan. The leader wanted to give the hero advice, which was that he, as the youngest, should not trample on the hope of these people. He really would not want all these people to be joyful, and then for a moment because perhaps the hero could die, and not for a moment they could lose all hope for their dreams and desires. He also asked the hero if there is at least something human left in him, to fight not for the sake of destroying the enemy, but for the sake of protecting his friends, then they are really glad to see a new hero who will stand up for humanity. After that, they all immediately left the elevator and went out into the street. Stephanie wanted to ask the leader something, and the heroes just looked around and considered what was there. Still, he looked at the soul in the gloom. He was hungry because he hadn't eaten for about 3 days. Of course he's a hero, and can withstand more, but still he would like to eat. And Stephanie, meanwhile, wanted to decide. She wanted to ask some other question, I say, but she didn't even, I knew which one, so I thought, knew. And also, while he was thinking about the hero's food, he observed all these people for what they represent here. And for a long time he had not seen people who were filled with happiness and kindness, as well as his valiant adventurers. Besides all of them, he saw only monsters and demons who would like to finish off in his world, as well as a bunch of half-baked heroes who wanted to threaten him. Died. The hero also saw a little girl who was moving towards him in small steps to greet the new hero and give him flowers, which most likely will not be so easy to grow here. This little girl congratulated him on the fact that he became their hero, and that he would protect them with all his heart. She gave him these little cute flowers. She was very happy. She had a smile all over her face, which made the hero surprised. Those who gave these flowers to the hero He only looked at how this little girl was, and then ran to her parents, happily talking about the fact that she was able to give the hero the protection of their city of saints, and she was very happy about it. This little girl hero resembled his younger sister who died in that same accident, or rather in the same apocalypse that he remembered from this world in the past. He thought about whether there was something human left of him, and what he must protect. The hero only thought that perhaps this is the best option. What should he do after he protects them all from the heroes? He will perhaps become a hero with him, but he didn't even know this yet. But perhaps he will return to this issue. After many people congratulated him on the fact that he had arrived to protect them all, he and the leader decided to go to their apartment, or rather the place where Jimmy and Stephanie lived. They had already begun to approach, and it was quite an interesting place, and the leader decided to turn to them and decided to give them something. He handed out 2 key cards with the help of which they could enter their houses and live there like a real couple, joking with both of them, and he also invited him to rest properly. But the hero was not very happy about this news, since he was not going to be here as soon as his hunger dulls. He would like to replenish his supplies, and understand how to get to the other heroes. He hopes that he will help with this. But Stephanie, having heard such words, decided to object, saying that he should listen to her, the restorative government of a large organization, and they can provide him with a little help and support. For example, organize an escort or provide soldiers. And so that he does not refuse immediately, and so that he thinks carefully that he needs the truth, any help or protection from the back. What they say is answered by the fact that Stephanie is right. If he wants, they can mobilize everyone to create in this city and go with him. After all, this will be more guarantees that he will be able to defeat them. Stephanie knows that he doesn't want to drag ordinary people into this, but she asks him to just think about it tonight. What the hero thought about, and perhaps Stephanie and the leader may be right. He will need support from the rear, and some kind of distraction for the heroes. But still sacrificing ordinary people is inhumane, and he would like to be a person, and not just a hero without feelings. After some time, they finally got to their apartment, and their apartment looked quite ordinary, nothing attractive, and also people like them lived here. Well, except for the hero, of course. After which Stephanie decided to take these warm showers, and when she finished, she was very happy that she was able to take a shower after so many years. Stephanie decided to see where the hero was. Maybe he thought that he really needed support. Well, the heroes took a can of soda. Since he had already eaten, he looked at this beautiful city that stood underground, and he just thought, should he do this or not? After all, exposing people is quite dangerous, both for himself and for them too. While the hero was thinking, Stephanie was very surprised that he was so calm and so original, sitting on the balcony, looking at it all and admiring. And she also admired him who was just sitting with a can of peaches. She decided to come closer and decided to ask him if he really likes canned peaches. Jimmy eats sweets for a reason, but it has a positive effect on mental activity. And in this way, he eats these peaches only in order to quickly find a way to finish off the hero sword and all his servants. While he was chatting so boringly at night, she decided to ask him to tell him a little about himself, something else that she didn't know. She was really interested in his life, and she was also interested in how he became a hero. When she asked the hero, the expression on his face changed, and he asked with disgust why this was, and she still doubts his abilities and that he is capable of doing something if he doesn't know enough information. He also hardened that she thinks that he might turn out like that just like other heroes. In her opinion, he thought that he too could be a traitor. To which she replied that not at all. She just became interested even without really getting to know each other. She trusted him, and she would like to know something more. Heroes to trust him not so much more, but just curious to know about his personality. They also have a long way to go, and I wouldn't want to be just a girl in a jacket who just follows the hero. Also, Stephanie was a little angry because he beat her then just for nothing, and because it was just an unfortunate performance. And she also hardened that he would look at what happened to her face through his own fault. And she, by the way, is a girl. And she would like him to be kind enough to exchange a few words with her, to tell her more about himself, so that this does not happen again. And even if he still has the conscience to behave like that, rudely to her. To which he sighed and said that his name, or rather his real name, is Park Jong-soo, but he likes Jimmy better. After which Stephanie, as soon as she heard that he had finally told at least a little truth about himself, she just smiled and looked at him with a smile on her face and a warm soul. She asked about what his middle name meant, that he himself was more accurately his real name. Well, she decided to introduce herself by saying that she was not just a girl in a jacket. She asked him to call her Chung Sun Min. But if it would also be more convenient, then Stephanie Chung or Stephanie Min is then so. What I expected was that she would take his last name as well as his first name just to be closer to him. He had never experienced such feelings for another person before because this was new to him after the apocalypse happened. But realizing that she might not get away from him and would ask him to call her that, they shook hands, and with that their gazes touched each other, and it was quite beautiful and cozy. This evening, when the hero and his companion were in the first and last once, we had a heart-to-heart talk. In one of the headquarters, it was very good. There were all the Korean people standing there who were just thinking about how they could protect their hometown underground, and not for a long time, checking everything, looking at it, developing it, and also thinking about how they could make their city better. Also, of course, behind all this, I did the same leader because he was interested in what they were doing. But they also performed the most important function for their headquarters. This is the search for heroes. And the most important thing is to protect your city from them so that in no case we were able to get closer here. And also while he was sitting with his employee, they decided to slip Stephanie in a bug. Well, just in case, suddenly they were discussing that the heroes could possibly talk to them and they could be in the same union. So he asked the recovery hero exactly on their side. He asked from one of the workers who listened behind them. One of the workers answered this question, and he said that there were no oddities in their conversation with the girl. So everything was in order. And he also thought that we could stop doubting his desire to deal with all the heroes. In fact, along with him, there are already 3 heroes on their side. And this is the hero Golem, who was able to become poor, and also the Sea Dragon, whose hero Jimmy was also poor, and they are all essentially considered heroes. And this also means that they have 7 more left to remove, including Mensa, or rather the hero, who will kill them all. And then they want to deprive him, they want to film him for the sake of justice. But in fact, it's quite cruel to deprive someone who will fight for them. In fact, 3 against 7 is still not a very good situation, so there is not much hope. And if they manage to remove at least a couple more, it will already mean victory. And also the leader decided to declare that then everything will finally return to normal. And finally, peaceful times will come, which they all so long for, which all of humanity yearns for, all of Japan and everything that lives around here. It trembles so that there will be peace on earth. Calm, and those same ones when they found loved ones were still alive those times everyone loves, and everyone wants everything to be like this. To which one of the workers even cried a little and realized that it turns out that they are all ordinary people but not at all useless. She and all these people were glad that they could survive, thanks to one of the heroes' restoration. The leader said that they still have a lot to do, and also, after all, they are well done and did a great job. After all, everyone who works here deserves praise, because we still need to look for such workers. He ordered that they all put in as much effort as they can to protect the lives of the people of this city, and will work hard on everything. But suddenly that same evening, the people who dedicated themselves to protecting this city for the first and last time allowed themselves to relax a little and congratulate each other on the fact that their efforts had finally borne fruit. But as soon as they realized this, a massive earthquake suddenly began around this entire city, and they couldn't even understand what happened at that moment. None of them could imagine how dark the future awaited them. After it all started, the leader said what kind of sound this was. He didn't understand. And what was happening after all? You felt smooth and calm around the city. The leader quickly ran out of the office and decided to look at the window to see what was happening behind him. And he also didn't understand what the problem was. Who could have allowed an earthquake to start right after 3 things like this cannot happen? Looking closer to the window, he saw something that he was most afraid of. And not only he, but the entire city that lived in this place and all its inhabitants were frightened by this incident. He saw that this was what he was most afraid of. He saw how the debris that came from a huge hole above fell onto the city. And also these debris could not have formed just like that. This form is the sword form of the sword hero, which means it's all over. Jimmy and Stephanie saw a huge hole. They immediately realized that this could not be a natural phenomenon, but only proof that the heroes were close. The leader would have been so angry that he even swore at the top of his mouth, and he just didn't understand. Why the hell could they do this? Are Stephanie and Jimmy traitors? And it was all just a big deception, but he also understood that they couldn't be alone for a long time. So anyway, insisted that they found them on their own, not understanding how, of course, but somehow they did it. They were all brought by the same hero, the Storm Petrel, or the Titan Man. He is called differently, and one thing was also clear. They all came here not just to chat, to destroy everything and everyone here. Hime immediately recognized, even after so many years, he recognized that it was the hero of the sword. He saw him in the center of shining armor, and with a cloak, as well as his ugly smile and ugly face. Everything seemed like a freak around this hero, because he hated him with all his heart, and wanted to make him poor, and so that he pays with his life for all the people whom he made poor. The sword hero along with the rest of the heroes. These eyes have not changed anything from the past. Mark still hates everything around him and wants only one thing: to take revenge on what all the people did for him. He wants to make sure that all people understand that they are inhuman and also cruel. That none of these heroes had to go through such things. An ordinary person may not be able to survive, but also they were all no different from each other. After all, heroes are like ordinary people. They are all people, but they are unusual. There was another hero, the hero Rovi, the hero of vampirism, whatever they called him, like everyone else. The vampire heroes landed right on one of the buildings with their fluttering red wings. This hero clearly looked like an ordinary boy, and this boy was the hero of Rovi, and they called him Hong Huarang. But in our case he is Chris. I didn't expect that they would all find the home of these worthless cockroaches, and it turns out they are all a town. And then another of the heroes spoke. Soon they will become her followers, and the heroes of the sword will also serve her. Therefore, she asks to be careful with expressions. This hero of the Beacon faith, and also in our case, she is Susie. The sectarian has gone, one of the heroes announced to Susie. This hero was very cute in his outfit. But in principle, this is not news since she is a hero of magic. She can be both sweet and dangerous. She said that even if she doesn't think about using her abnormal power, she's disgusted by the power of the goddess of faith. One of the heroes was pleased to hear their verbal skirmish. He said that the two of them were so enthusiastic. And by the way, this is the same Captain America, Hero Iron Hands. Another hero also abruptly decided to tell them, with his help, he was able to try to bypass the protection of the systems. But for some reason he did not hear gratitude and facial words from any of the heroes. We also may have seen this hero. And this is the hero of the Return of the Fox. He is John, but his we will call Salmon. And there was also a rather silent but also a hero. He was a hero of cultivation, and his name was Kion Jinsen. Let's call mine Rico. And Bella is the hero of the transformation of Ligarum. Call him Titan, and also he was waiting for further instructions from the hero of the sword. He was the tallest of them all, and also he controlled almost all the equipment. But Salmon approached him by the way. He took him by the shoulders and boldly congratulated him on the fact that they were able to find another Vanka village of these worthless people. And also, he asked Titan. He told him that Mark wants everyone in this city to feel real sadness, the heaviest sadness that is generally possible, and it can be created only through cruelty and torment. This is what all the heroes achieved, so that all people would know it all in a matter of seconds. Hearing, Titan realized that he was a little mistaken and immediately could not understand the feelings of the sword hero. So he immediately began to correct his mistakes. He began to activate the Buster mode, the missile strike mode. Titan reduced and limited his forces by only 30% so as not to hurt them and also some people. And after that, he activated the Buster mode, with which all the missiles began to fly across a bunch of terrain. And immediately it was a rain of missiles, and such a number surprised everyone, even the heroes. Because with such an ability, it is possible to unleash more than one nuclear war with all states if such a thing existed. The leader saw all this, and understood that the heroes were able to get into their city. He had no choice but to ask and hope from the hero Jimmy and Stephanie that they could cope with them. But he could not expect that it would be so quickly. I could not find them without any complaints. He simply did not understand how it happened. He hated himself for not being so careful and for not being able to protect all the people who relied on him as a hero of restoration, and also on their military who promised themselves that they would not let them be revealed. He quickly ran to all the people who were developing some plans, only telling them to immediately activate all civilian interception systems and cannon installations. But coming closer, he saw that all the people seemed to have fallen asleep or did not want to do anything at all. They were like puppets. Perhaps this was the action of some hero. It was definitely a hero who forced them to do nothing. And because of this, the whole system was destroyed. He decided to repeat why they are inactive and do nothing. It was in order to activate the systems. But literally at the same moment, people in masks turned on him. They all said in unison only one speech. Does he believe they're gentlemen? After this, the leader realized that this is the strength of the hero of faith, and he recruited them all for himself. And now, in order to save them all, it is necessary to subjugate her. But this is impossible without the help of ordinary people. He realized that all hope is only above all the hero of the spear. While he was thinking about this is the very hero of faith, or Susie. She just watched ridiculously at how one person could not do anything about it, and also she is literally in a few seconds in the tallest building. After they said whether the Lord believes in them, they immediately ran towards the leader, but he managed to run out the door. Having crossed to the other side of the door, he locked it as tightly as possible and held it so that they could not get out until he calmed down. But he really didn't know how long it could last. While there is a chance and he would intercept the radio, he decided to call for reinforcements, so he turned to the battleship or the Bat under the code name, and he said that this was a Raven. But he asked everyone to mobilize all the machinations for the remaining heroes. He really asked that they could all stop them. He ordered them to cover the restoration hero and protect the city. He said if they stay now, then the country will end. As those who were under secret names, they were already lying exhausted and listening. They had already lost all consciousness. Only one hero did all this. In just a few blows, he was able to kill all the military men surrounding him. Hero of the Iron Hand. He just laughed at what he was trying to do. He realized that it was so touching that he even cried. It was a very good speech, but only now. There was no one to listen to it. After which he stood in one of the poses of his favorites and shouted that the triumph of justice was obtained. In fact, everything ended very quickly. Or rather, the entire military force ended. The restorative government. Also a tank division and special troops. The battleship was destroyed. Slowly, this entire city was turning into something like the surface. A little more, and all the buildings that were built here, all the high-rise buildings, could explode and be destroyed at any moment. All the workers who worked for the government made them all miserable. They couldn't lay a finger on the hero, and he was also delighted with the fact that they had done a good job and were prepared. So he praised them because they were even able to kill him a couple of times, which means that the restorative government, a special unit of bat killers, was destroyed. Then only thicker red paint flew across the city. Or rather, the liquid that flew throughout the city was created by the vampire. Many people know that there is quite a lot of iron in the liquid, and that is why vampires are so strong with the help of the liquid. And with the help of it, he was able to destroy a lot of military equipment. This vampire was incredibly cruel, and he was able to single-handedly defeat the entire army of military equipment. And it also turns out that the Restoration government's helicopter regiment of crows was destroyed. As a result of the invasion of heroes, everyone who was in this city was dead, and the city itself was divided into a bunch of small pieces, and only ruins in which perhaps there were no survivors, and it was only part of the city. But still everyone died there, and nothing happened with that everything cannot be done. They saw how it was only a red fire that devoured everything in its path here, as well as a pile of smoke, because of which many people also suffocated. In just 3 minutes and 17 seconds, 13 died. Sword Heroes didn't even pay attention initially, but his reaction was too fast. This is really too big a number. But the hero saw it all. And while he prepared everyone has their own magic and everything else, together Stephanie came up with a plan. And also the hero of the spear did not stand still, and he tried to run to the hero of the sword as quickly as possible in order to take revenge on him properly after of this. He immediately threw a spear at him, which the heroes of the sword didn't even pay attention to initially. But his reaction was too fast. Well, when he saw that a sword was flying at him, one of his subjects, the heroes, decided to intercede and repel the blow with just his appearance, and thus Rico interceded as a hero. He was able to get into a pose without any problem while he flew away. He was so fast that it could not even be imagined by an ordinary person. He created a dynamic spell block, and with the help of this block, he lightly deflected this spear that was flying at super speed with his hand. After which this spear was reflected directly into some building that was flying at an angle of 90 degrees. Even such a great spell could wound his hand. Even such a greatest spell was able to wound his hand, and he realized that this unusual spear was the spear of the same legendary restoration hero that the sword hero tried to destroy in one fell swoop. As soon as he could, he tried as quickly as possible to destroy all these heroes, the spoiled 6 who had not created for them all. He could not forgive any of them. He hated them with all his soul. After which Jimmy shouted that he had found him, and he was very happy about it because he would finally be able to take revenge on him for everything that he had done to him and everything to his family. He would like to tell him everything that had accumulated in him, log in all the codes. Then why he became a hero is that he drank and was able to go such a long way to find him, and also the fact that he is a coward. Only the servants feel him. The hero realized that this is the same hero of restoration who wants to try to destroy everything that he treasured, and also all his heroes. He understood that he does not have much hope. Even though he is the hero himself, he cannot cope alone against his family. He told him that this is the one who is trying to destroy his kingdom of eternal sadness, to which this hero only looked thoughtfully. Jimmy did not want to hear anything from him. He had only anger in his soul and on his body. He understood that he had to get all his trump cards, because in such a short time he saw that they were all North can destroy a city in a matter of seconds if they want. In Jimmy's eyes there was only cruel rage at all the heroes who surrounded him literally 5 meters or less. He just wanted to see them die, no matter how. But he wanted it with all his heart for everyone he loved. The cabinet of the soul, he understood that he had finally reached this cruel villain who had destroyed his family. A calm and familiar life, all cool and cheerful friends. This is exactly the person or no longer the person who destroyed his city and created the apocalypse. This is the one who turned this world into ruins. Jimmy was filled with anger and he only wanted one thing. Where should he start? That he should choose which weapon would make him suffer to the fullest. His hands still yearned for this hero to get hit in the face properly, but for everything he did. Especially so tiny that he closed them so tightly that he could even break them by accident. He wanted to tear him into pieces with his own teeth, so much he wanted this. Jimmy asked only one thing. to make his own grave and bury himself there because he would finish him off once and for all and nothing would stop him. The same name began to call upon a bunch of his spears, the very same spears of which he had spent his entire duty. All this time he had been collecting weapons to take revenge on him. If one did not work, the other would work. One of the most important spears for him is the protective spear Ankle, with which he captured the dragon Leviathan, the hero of the seas. Then he is followed by an earthen spear, which was also not weakly mined, but is considered one of the most legendary weapons in his world that could be crafted with very rare materials. The Star Spear. This spear was obtained thanks to one of the highest angels who gave it after he impoverished the demon of their lands. But in no way could it be obtained. It could only be obtained for his passion for justice. And also there is, on the contrary, the demonic Berlin. This very spear belonged to the hero demon who wanted to destroy him and his entire population. And he also wanted him to dream about him. But mind you, he had stolen it several thousand times in order to level up in his world. On the fiery spear Igniton, this spear was created from pure flame. This spear was something similar to an Ifrit from Minecraft, and also a dragon's fang. And he had a past, or rather his reflection. An ice spear in a dream with this spear destroyed more than one city in their dimension, because with its help it was possible to turn anything into ice.